Hello and welcome to the Blobber Plays Lone Wolf Saga as part of our Lone Wolf Wednesday series. We are up to Book 15. The Dark, with a E on the end, Crusade. The story so far. Boop. It is the year MS 5076. The 26 years have passed since your brave kinsman perished at the hands of the Dark Lords of Helgadad. These champions of evil, who were sent forth by Na, the King of Darkness, to destroy the fertile world of Magnamund, have themselves since been destroyed. You vowed to avenge the murder of the Kai, and you have kept your pledge. For it was you who brought about their downfall, when you alone infiltrated their foul domain in the Darklands, and caused the destruction of their leader, the Archlord Gnag, and the seat of his power that was the infernal city of Helgadad. In the wake of their destruction, chaos befell the Darkland armies, who, until then, had been poised to conquer all of northern Magnamund. Some factions which were part of this huge army, most notably the barbaric Dracarim, began to fight with the others for control. This disorder quickly escalated into all-out civil war. This feels like it's changed. They used to discuss how the Dracarim returned to their own land and the rest of them fought, which allowed the free land armies of Magnamund time in which to recover and launch a counter-offensive. Skillfully, their commanders exploited the chaos and secured a swift and total victory over an enemy far superior in numbers. 6 years now, peace has reigned in Summerland. Under your direction, the once ruined monastery of the Kai has been thoroughly rebuilt and restored to its former glory. The task of teaching a second order of Kai warriors the skills and proud traditions of your ancestors is well underway. The new generation of Kai recruits, all of whom were born during an era of war against the Dark Lords, possess latent Kai skills and show exceptional promise. These skills will be nurtured and honed to perfection during their time at the monastery, so that they may teach and inspire future generations, ensuring the continued security of your homeland in future years. Your attainment of the rank of Grand Master brought with it great rewards. Some, such as the restoration of the Kai and the undying gratitude of your fellow Summerlending, could have been anticipated. Yet, there have also been rewards you couldn't possibly have foreseen. The discovery that within you lay the potential to develop Kai disciplines even beyond those of the Magna Kai, which until now had been thought to be the ultimate that a Kai master could aspire to, was truly a revelation. Your discovery has inspired you to... for some reason I was mentally inserting a comma there. For some reason your discovery has inspired you to set out upon a new and previously unknown path, in search of the wisdom and power that no Kai Lord before you has ever possessed. In the name of your creator, the god Kai, and for the greater glory of Summerland and the goddess Ashir, you have vowed to reach the very pinnacle of perfection, to attain all of the Grand Master disciplines and become the first Kai Supreme Master, which sounds very Dragon Ball Z. With diligence and determination, you set about the restoration of the Kai Monastery and organized the training of the Second Order recruits. Your efforts were rewarded, and within the space of 2 short years, the first raw recruits had graduated to become a cadre of gifted Kai Masters, who in turn were able to commence teaching their skills to subsequent intakes of novices. Readily, the Masters rose to their newfound responsibilities, leaving you free to devote more of your time to the pursuit and perfection of your Grand Master disciplines. During this period, you also received expert tutelage in the ways of magic from 2 of your most trusted friends and advisors, Guildmaster Bane, leader of the Brotherhood of the Crystal Star, and Lord Ramoa, speaker for the High Council of the Elder Mages of, Dusani? In the deepest subterranean level of the monastery, 100 feet below the Tower of the Sun, you ordered the excavation and construction of a special vault. In this magnificent chamber, wrought of granite and gold, you placed the 7 lore stones of Nixator, the gems of Kai power that you had rediscovered during your quest for the Magna Kai. It was here, bathed in the golden light of the radiant gems, that you spent countless hours in pursuit of perfection. Sometimes alone, sometimes in the company of your most able advisors, Bane and Ramoa. You worked hard to develop your innate Grand Master disciplines and grasp the fundamental secrets of left-handed and and Old Kingdom magic. Right-handed is the evil people's magic. During this time, you noticed many remarkable changes taking place within your body. You became physically and mentally stronger, your 5 primary senses sharpened beyond all that you had experienced before. And, perhaps most remarkably, your body began to age at a slower pace. For every 5 years that elapse, you now age but 1. At this time, many changes were occurring beyond the borders of Summerland. In the regions to the northeast of Magador and the Macengorge, the elder mages of Desi, and the herb wardens of Bautar were working together in an effort to restore the dusty volcanic wasteland to its former fertile state. It was the first tentative steps towards the reclamation of all the Darklands. However, their progress was painfully slow, and both parties were resigned to the fact that their efforts to undo the damage caused by the Dark Lords would take not only years but centuries to complete. In the far west, the Dracarim had retreated to their homelands and were engaged in a bloody war against the Lencians. Much of northern Nyrasil had been reclaimed by the armies of King Sarnak. The Lencian commander and his flag now flew over territory which 2,000 years ago had once been part of Lencia. Following the destruction of the Dark Lords of Helgadad, the Giaks, the most prolific in number of all of Gnag's troops, fled into the Darklands and sought refuge in the gigantic city fortresses of Nadgazad, Arnak, Gornan, Akagazad, and Kag. Within each of these hellish strongholds, fierce fighting broke out as remnants of the Zaghash, the Lesser Dark Lords, and the Nadziranim, the evil practitioners of right-handed magic, who once aided individual Dark Lord masters, fought for control. It is widely believed that by the time the Elder Mages and the Herb Wardens reach the walls of these strongholds, they will encounter no resistance, as the occupiers will have long since brought about their own distinction. As the owners will long since have brought about their own distinction. Beg pardon. Elsewhere, throughout northern Magnamund, peace reigns victorious, and the peoples of the free kingdoms rejoice in the knowledge that the age of the Dark Lords has finally come to an end. Readily, men have exchanged swords for plowshares and shields for plows. And now the only marching they do is along the ruts of their freshly furrowed fields, which is lovely to say. Freshly furrowed fields. Few are the watchful eyes that scan the distant horizon in fear of what may appear, although there are still those who maintain their vigilance. The agents of Nar come in many guises, and there are those upon Magnamund who wait quietly in the shadows for the chance to do his evil bidding. Only a year ago, the evil Senna Druids of Ruil attempted to enact Nar's revenge. Secretly in the laboratories of their foul stronghold of Mogaruth, they labored to create a virulent plague virus capable of killing every living creature on Magnamund, save their own kind. Word of their terrible plan reached Lord Ramoa, who immediately urged the rulers of the Freelands to raise armies and invade. Hurriedly, they complied. But the invasion was a disaster. 7,000 fighting men entered Ruil, intent on storming the fortress of Mogaruth and razing it to the ground. 7,000 marched into the Dark Realm, and only 70 emerged alive. The Sennas were within days of perfecting their ultimate weapon when you took upon the challenge and ventured alone into Mogaruth. Despite overwhelming odds, you thwarted their evil plan, after several timeline resets, by destroying the virus and the means by which it was created. After emerging from Ruil triumphant, your quest fulfilled, you returned home to Summerland and the Kai monasteries, where you once again resumed your duties as Grand Master. 3 months later, on the day that saw the first fall of winter snow, you were visited by Lord Ramoa. Once again, he found himself the reluctant bearer of ill news. Your friend, Guildmaster Bane, whilst helping with the reclamation of the wasteland close to the Macken Gorge, had been abducted by a warband of Giaks under the command of Nad-Ziranim sorcerers. A rescue was attempted, but ruthlessly the Nad-Ziranim obliterated all those who tried to follow their escape into the Darklands. It was feared that the Nad-Ziranim would try to extract from Bane the secrets of left-handed magic, so that they might marry it with their own foul sorcery. Such an outcome would have given them extraordinary power enough to revive the Darklands. A previous attempt to unite the two paths of magic had resulted in catastrophe for Summerland. In the year 5050, Vonatar the Traitor, this is like Book 2, a magician from the same guild as Bane, had betrayed his homeland in exchange for the promise of Nad-Ziranim power. It was his act of treachery which brought about the invasion of Summerland and the destruction of the First Order of the Kai. Bane's survival depended upon a swift rescue from Cag. Mindful of all that was at stake, courageously you volunteered to enter the city fortress alone, in an attempt to save your friend. We later stabbed him in the spirit world. In like book... I want to say 17, but we're only at 15. It was like the book before we killed the fly guy, or one or two before that. We went into the spirit world, and a bunch of people that we'd beaten before were somehow there, including that guy. He was leading them, and we had to killificate him to escape. You courageously volunteered to enter the city fortress alone in an attempt to save your friend. Despite fierce odds, you gained entry to Cag, located Bane, and snatched him from the foul denizens of the city by way of a daring aerial escape from the upper levels of their great citadel. Bane was severely weakened by the ordeal at the hands of the Nad-Ziranim, and had it not been for your timely intervention, he would have perished in the grim city fortress. The rescue of Guildmaster Bane and his safe return to Summerland was the cause of some celebration, especially in the streets and guild halls of his native city of Tauren. For several days, you allowed yourself to be fettered, by the Brotherhood of the Crystal Star, before returning to your monastery where, with a feeling of quiet satisfaction, you gladly resumed your duties as Kai Grand Master. Now, I'm not used to this word. Does this mean they held fates in your honor? To honor or entertain someone lavishly. F-E-T-E is a verb. Yeah, I was thinking of fate, like... Here you'd have, like, winter fate, or summer fate, or harvest fate. But that's the only context I remember ever hearing it in my life. Oof. No. We have only started fairly recently, about 10 minutes ago, Salar. Okay, so they fated us. I might be pronouncing wrongly. We returned and started our duties. So the year ended and another began. Yet even before the snows of winter had begun to thaw, you are precisely on time, Salar. As a wizard, as a powerful wizard, you arrive precisely when you intend to. Yet even before the snows of winter had begun to thaw, once again your unique skills were being sought in the relentless struggle against evil. This time the plea for help arrived by way of a foreign ambassador, a special envoy who had travelled thousands of miles from the court of King Sarnak of Lencia. They warred against the Dracarim, who were under the command of Magnaan. They love their double A sounds for enemies. Gnag. Magnaan, the High Warlord of Dark, had stagnated ever since the onset of winter, and recently the whole campaign had taken a turn for the worse. The Lencians learned that Magnaan had undertaken a quest for the Doomstone of Dark, an artifact of legendary evil, which could have also had an E to go with dark. It was said that this gem was more powerful, the most powerful of all the Doomstones created by Agarash, the Damned, during the Age of Eternal Night. Before the demise of the Dark Lords, this Doomstone had rested in the head of the Nearus Scepter, a magical weapon wielded by Dark Lord Dakushna, Lord of Zagorst. Oh no, sorry, Kagorst, not a Z. Kagorst. In the chaos that followed the wake of Dakushna's destruction, the nearest scepter was lost. Actually, sounds like somehow the rain has gotten louder. Boost up our making the rain quieter a little bit more. The nearest scepter was lost, though many secretly believed it to have been stolen by one of Dakushna's Nadziranim sorcerers. Some months later, during the war in Nearus, the scepter reappeared, but the Doomstone was missing from its setting atop the scepter's platinum haft. We fear that Magnaan is close to finding the Doomstone of Dark, said the Lencian envoy. Already he possesses the scepter's haft. My liege, King Sarniac beseeches you, Grand Master Lone Wolf, to come to our aid. Help us find the Doomstone and thwart Magnaan's plan, for if he successfully reunites the Doomstone and the scepter, he will command a power capable of our undoing. With respect, my lord, surely this is one weapon, however evil it may be, and is no match when pitted against all the armoured might of Lencia, you reply, diplomatically, as of yet unconvinced by the envoy's pleas. Perhaps so, Grand Master, were the nature of the threat merely the weapon alone, but this is not the issue. Until now, the Nadziranim sorcerers who controlled the strongholds of Kagorst and Akazad, Akgazad, have refused to aid Magnaan in his war against us. Many times he's begged for their help. Within these fortress walls are thousands of Giaks and other breeds who sought sanctuary there after the defeat of the Dark Lords. They still possess their weapons and would make a formidable enemy if they were ever mustered against us. Magnaan's possession of the Doomstone of Dark would most certainly influence the Nadziranim. Its power is such that Magnaan could simply force them to obey his every command, as their refusal would result in their destruction. Politely you dismissed the envoy while you considered your response. In the solitude of your chamber you pondered the problem, weighing the plight of Lencia against your duties and responsibilities here at the monastery. At length, and after careful deliberation, you reached your decision. Well, my lord, will you help us thwart Magnaan? Once, not so very long ago, your king and his army aided me during my quest for the Magna Chi. I believe now the time has come for me to repay my debt of gratitude. I shall help you. I shall return with you to Lencia and champion your cause. I vow that I will do all in my power to thwart Magnaan's quest. End. Extremely long intro thing. Okay, what skills do we want? Do we want better animal control, better invisibility, better pathfinding, better mental defense, magic, magic, magic. Well, actually, this isn't magic. This is short range. Send out your spirits to do investigations, but it essentially is usually just used like a short range vision magic. I kind of think getting the mental screening, mental defense. We get to add another weapon to our list of Grandmastered ones, even though I feel like we did this last time and we picked sword and it hasn't remembered. The monastery has been rebuilt. Here are the special items you may bring with you. Everything else has been removed. Do I want 2 quivers? We can probably get rid of an empty quiver. I don't think the statue will be useful. We'll keep the extra bow skill thing. That helps. And it doesn't cost an inventory slot anyway. The dagger is a useful backup item. The sword. The silver helm. No, that all looks good. I could take the quiver and then a bunch of arrows out of our inventory. It's not like I need to store 800 arrows. Sure, done. Money. Save some more money. I understand. Here is your free stuff. We got given almost 5 crowns short of maximum, although it might actually be maximum because I forget about the exchange rate of these two to crowns and the fact that we're only allowed to have 50, so we might actually be at the maximum. We might be at money cap. We will take healing potion. And then out of these, I don't think I need the keys anymore. Honestly, I should have put them in the monastery, but whatever. We will take meal and meal. We already have a rope. I can't carry any more weapons, so I think we're done. The usual thing about no matter how poorly you've rolled on health or health or attack skill, if you are wise and fortunate, you should be able to get to the end of the quest. 1 sec. Having pledged your help, you commence preparations for your long journey to Lencia. You have many things you wish to attend to before you depart, and so you invite Lord Florus, the Lencian envoy, to enjoy the hospitality of the monastery for a few days in order that you might settle your most pressing obligations. To your surprise, he declines your invitation and insists you leave at once. He is anxious to return immediately to his distant homeland. Respectfully, he reminds you that time does not favor your quest. By ship and by horse, his journey to the monastery took more than a month. And with Magnaan already so near to finding the Doomstone of Dark, he fears that more delays might prove disastrous. Mindful of the great distances that needs to be traversed, you dispatch a journeyman to Tauren. He carries your request to help, which is addressed to Lord Ramoa, your most trusted friend and advisor, who is presently attending to Guildmaster Bane in his convalescence. Early next morning, Lord Ramoa arrives at the monastery in person, aboard the vessel that is to be your answer to the present dilemma. Skyrider, Bane's flying ship. Warmly you greet your old friend and introduce him formally to Lord Florus. You two talk at length about the war in the West, and Ramoa concludes the discussion by voicing his approval of your decision to go help the King of Sarniak. Oh, sorry, Sarnak, no I. He offers some final words of warning. Be in no doubt, Grand Master. This mission you have chosen to fulfill will be perilous as any you've undertaken before. Magna Arn is a cunning adversary, and the stone he seeks to possess is a deadly weapon. Do not underestimate your enemy, as should he succeed, I will fear the lands of Western Tenerius will never be at peace. Within the hour, the final preparations for your airborne voyage to Lencia are completed, and Lord Florus and you are piped aboard the Skyrider by Bosun Nolram and his cheerful crew of dwarves. You exchange a few reminiscences with each other of the jovial crew. With each of the jovial crewmen, not with each other and then. And cannot help but smile when they tell you how proud they feel to have been given the chance to serve you once more. Nolram takes the helm, and you sense a vibration run down the length of the deck as he coaxes the craft's powerful engine to life. Lord Florus joins you at the prow, and together you wave a farewell to Ramoa and your fellow Kai as stealthily the Skyrider ascends into the crisp, wintry sky. With a sudden surge of power, the keel clears the battlements of the Tower of the Sun, and swiftly the monastery and then its inhabitants recede into the darkness. You and your companion are escorted to a warm cabin at the bow, which has been prepared for your passage. Well stocked with provisions, and especially across the grand oak table, you find several maps of northern Magnamund. Aided by Lord Florus, you study the maps and use them to chart a course to the Lencian city port of Vidira. Actually, let's go look at our map. Is our map still showing us in Magnamund, or are we already... No, we have a new map. So what do we got? We've got Xynodog. Zandzi, they love their Z names. Zandhessa. Zeggazad. Gagheza. Zaldia. Aztardat. Sounds like TARDIS. So over here, the coastal city of Zanoheza. And then down here, I don't know who this is. Maycastle. Yeah, we have new map. The swamps are interesting. Okay, that is enough map stare. By your calculations, it will take 30 hours for the Skyrider to reach its destination. During your voyage, Lord Florus recounts the dramatic events which have taken place in Western Teneris since the demise of the Dark Lords. Prior to their fall, the Drakrim nation had for many centuries kept the Lencians at bay. Countless crusades had been undertaken to capture the lands that had all but ended in costly defeat. But all had ended in costly defeat for many centuries. Countless crusades have been undertaken to recapture their former lands, but all ended in costly defeat for the House of Sarnik. 2 years ago, the tide finally turned when the king launched an invasion across the Gulf of Lencia into the lands of Zaldir and Niris. The boldness of this strategy and the unpreparedness of his enemies combined to win him many victories in the early months of the war. Much of Zaldir and all of northern Niris were taken and held by his conquering knights, and now the battle lines are drawn diagonally across the center of Niris. From Lanklanag to the shore of the marshland forest, Lake Lanag marshland forest. Are these actually shown on here? I see the Shad Forest. But I don't see the Marshland Forest. Well, nothing to do but keep reading. However, King Sarnak cannot lay claim to the total victory of the south, for the cities of Shipda, and Dark have defied all his attempts at capture. Their Dracarim garrisons are steadfastly held on to these important strongholds, and, although they've been surrounded and besieged for more than a year, they yet refuse to surrender. At present, the war is focused around the towers of Hokidat and Konozod, says Lord Florus, tracing a circle around their location on the map with the tip of his index finger. Many battles have been fought there, but victory has at least eluded us. Now, with the onset of a cruel winter, our advance is ground to a halt. Maintaining the sieges of Shipda and Dark has drained us of troops and the resources that would have been put to better use in the north. To compensate for the shortage, the king has employed many companies of foreign mercenaries to reinforce his army in the field. But their services are expensive and the campaign proves costly, both in revenue and lives. The king is hard-pressed to pay for their continued services. The king is hard-pressed to pay for their continued loyalty, and already several regiments have deserted. If Magnaan were to complete his quest and strike now whilst the battle lines are weakened, his counterattack might push us all the way back to the sea. Lord Florus's report is sobering, yet it serves to strengthen your determination to thwart Magnaan and his quest. Later, shortly before nightfall, you leave the cabin and go to the stern deck for a breath of fresh air. In quiet solitude, you see the great expanse of the Slavarian plain, passing by more than a mile beneath the craft. As you watch, you lose yourself in thoughts of what may await your arrivals in Lencia. The night sky is clear and laced with twinkling stars. As you return to the cabin to sleep, you draw comfort from the thought that the weather and the stars have only got to fit properly tomorrow. You seem to have run out of speed. And the stars seem to see fit to help speed your night's passage to Vadera. Somehow I was reading that wrong in my head. 257. You rise at dawn and peer out of the cabin's porthole to be greeted by a wondrous sight. The Skyrider is now flying west along the Tentrius, the great divide which parts the two continents of Magnamund. You are soaring more than a mile above the blue-green waters which shimmer in the early morning sun. Sunlight is also reflected from the snow-capped mountains. Peaks of the Great Boar and Borodon, wow, how original, Boar and Borodon mountains, which rise up on either side to form a gigantic corridor of unyielding stone. Fondly, the crew cast their eyes across the northern landscapes, for this is the magnificent realm of Bor, the place of their birth, and many years have elapsed since they last visited their native land. A lengthy siege was the backdrop to the D&D campaign you ran. It was fun. Keeping a siege supplied? Or on the inside or the outside, basically? Were you on the side of the people under siege or the siegers? The weather remains clear and swift progress is made as the Skyrider follows its course along the Tentrius towards the Gulf of Lencia. By mid-morning you pass within a few miles of Humboldt, capital of Eru, then emerge from the mountain corridors to a less enchanting sight. To the north, as far as the eye can see, stretches a dull and sickly mire. It is the infamous Hell Swamp, an infernal morass of twisted vegetation and treacherous shifting mudflats. Slowly the hours pass, and the anticipation of your arrival at Vidira steadily grows. Then, 2 hours past noon, the lookout catches first sight of the city, nestling in its protected bay along the Lencian coast. You join Nolram at the prow as skillfully he begins a descent towards the main square, the only place large enough to accommodate the craft in the closely packed quarters of the populous city. You were outside. The city had naval superiority and so could maintain some measure of supply. The king hired a great mage known as the Siegebreaker. At first, the sight of the Skyrider gliding towards their city caused a wave of panic, who mistook it for a Dracarim machine of war. But this initial fear is assuaged when the tower pass word that the mask is bearing a Summerland flag. Upon landing, masses of curious citizens surge out from the surrounding streets to form a ring of bodies around the ship's keel. When a troop of armoured guardsmen push through the crowds and the air is filled with the buzz of their excited speculation. After a brief consultation with Lord Florus, they escort you both to the High Council. No, to the Vidira capital for an immediate audience with King Sarnak. Straight to talking to the big boss. You are ushered into a lavish chamber hung with Lencian flags and decorated with exotic fineries from the far-flung corners of Magnaman. All around, guardsmen stand rigidly at attention, their eyes watchful and unblinking behind their silver visors as you approach the high-backed throne which dominates the center of the room. There, before you sits King Sarnak, his silver-grey hair framing a benign face that is still lean and firm despite advancing years. "Welcome, Grand Master," he says. It'd be really awkward if he ended up being the bad guy with that voice. As he rises from his throne and offers his hand in friendship. "I prayed that you would come to Lancia only to help in the defeat of that cur, Magnaan. But I didn't imagine that you would arrive so quickly. You are most welcome." Gladly you acknowledge the king's greeting, and after he has commended and dismissed Lord Florus, you adjourn to meet. I want to say meet with him, but you adjourn with him to an antechamber where he tells you about the mission ahead. The latest report from my spies and scouts in the north says Magnaan is presently at his army headquarters in Shug Kona. Dracarim have been seen completing I want to say a ritual. Have been seen combing the region of the Tozaz forest 50 miles to the north of his headquarters. We think that this is where he believes he'll find the Doomstone of Dark. There are not many mages' temples in the area, so perhaps he is harboring one. The king pauses for a few moments to take some refreshments from a jewel-encrusted pitcher. He pours 2 glasses of wine and offers one to you before continuing. Gratefully, you accept. Morning, Maury. And politely you sip the rare vintage whilst listening to the king's plan of action. Grand Master, he says, fixing you with his powerful gaze. If you are to thwart Magnaan, you must travel to Shug-Kona and seek him out. He must be killed, or failing this, the infernal doomstone must be destroyed before he can use it against us. Secrecy is paramount if your mission is to succeed. No attempt to approach Shug-Kona directly should be made. The lines of battle are drawn up to within 50 miles. And of the stronghold... And the region is alive with Dracarim. Yet there is still one means of approach that one might attempt. That one might attempt. As there is one means of approach that the enemy will not be guarding. I have made provision for a boat to take you to a place that we call Bear Rock. It lies on the river Gorneni and is only 30 miles from Magnaan's headquarters. There is a complication, however. To reach the river, you must first enter the Hell Swamp. The thought of venturing into the terrible mire fills you with a cold dread, for the Hell Swamp is notoriously perilous. King Sarnak recognizes your apprehension and quickly tries to assuage your fears. I understand your anxiety, Grandmaster, but rest assured that you will not be entering alone. One of my... Beg pardon, just a sec. One of my finest officers will be your guide throughout this mission. He has scouted the route before and knows how to avoid many dangers. Once you reach Bear Rock, he will guide you through the forest to Shug-Kona. There you must find out where Magnaan is, and do... Oh, I'm sorry again. You must find out where Magnaan is and do whatever is necessary to foil his quest. Once your mission has been accomplished, my officer will bring you through our battle lines and see you safely back here to Vadira. The king reaches for a cord which hangs from a hole in the domed ceiling. He tugs it and a bell tinkles in a distant part of the citadel. Now, Grandmaster, he says, turning to face the door to the antechamber, the time has come for me to introduce my guide. If you took part in the Battle of Setzer in a previous adventure, which we did, if you've done the previous books, turn here. You may recognize the person. Through the open archway comes a Lencian soldier attired in the parade tunic and breeches of a court captain. He is unusually tall, but his most striking feature is his close-set eyes, which are bright above his thin, hawk-like nose and bushy black moustache. At once you recognize the officer, for he is Captain Prarg. During the fight at Setzer, you and he led Prince Gregor's reserves in a decisive action that helped save the Uran guards, and turned the tide of the battle in your favor. Well met, sire, he says. 'Tis an honor to have been chosen to guide you on your noble quest. You will commence your mission at midnight, says the king, motioning you towards a small window that overlooks the busy harbour of Vadira. He points to a ship, one of several moored at the quayside, but one that is readily identifiable, for it is the only vessel not in military service. The trading sloop will carry you and the captain to a small island you can see in the distance, Battle Island. There you will find a sailing boat with enough provisions for your mission. The captain knows where it is hidden, and he will be responsible for your safe passage once you set sail for the Hell Swamp. Remember, secrecy is vital to the success of your mission. Trust no one except Captain Prarg. The king voices his fear that Dracarim spies are operating in the harbour, and expresses his concern that your unexpected arrival by air may have already alerted them to your presence here in Vidira. However, it is too late to change the plan, and it is a risk that simply must be accepted. Having concluded your briefing, King Sarnak sends for an escort to take you to a private chamber where you can rest and reflect upon the mission. Later that evening, you and Captain Prague are smuggled out of the citadel via a secret passage which leads directly to the harbour. Quietly you board the sloop and hide yourselves amongst its cargo. The cargo which is destined for the garrison of Battle Island. The ship sets sail on the first strike of midnight, and after a smooth and uneventful voyage, it moors at a jetty at the southern coast of Battle Island 3 hours later. The crew of the sloop are unaware that you are aboard, and in order to safeguard your secrecy, you wait your chance to disembark without being seen. Soon the opportunity presents itself. As the crew go in search of help to unload the cargo, the two of you leave the sloop and hurry off along the beach, heading north towards the place where your sailing boat awaits. There is no cloud, and a near full moon illuminates the rocky beach, making it easy for you to progress despite the difficult terrain. We don't have super pathsmanship, so no special choice for us. You are moving across a stretch of beach which is overlooked by a small grassy hill. Oh no, not a grassy knoll. When suddenly a harsh command splits the night air. Halt! Halt where you are. Do not move. Instantly you flatten yourself among the rocks, and a moment later you hear Prague whispering. They're Lencians. They must be lookouts from the island garrison. Together you watch with bated breath as two inquisitive soldiers appear, silhouetted on the top of the hill. Brandishing their spears, they curse your sudden disappearance and come hurrying down a steep track towards the beach. Curse them if they've failed us. If they ever find us, we'll get poisoned. Sorry. If they ever find us, the whole garrison will get to hear of our mission even before it has properly begun. We don't have advanced invisibility, so we don't get to ultra invisible. Follow me, shouts Prague, and before you can stop him, he's on his feet and sprinting away. Hurriedly you follow, with the lookouts shouting wildly in your wake. Halt, they scream. Halt, or we shoot. There is the sound of bowfire, and two arrows hit the rocks and clatter close by your feet. Although clutter works as well as in that sentence. You invoke your Magna Chi skills of invisibility to keep you safe, but your discipline does not extend to Captain Prague, who is less than an arm's length ahead of you. Then your senses tingle anew, drawing your eyes towards a ridge less than 30 yards from the beach. Standing there, clutching loaded crossbows, are two more Lencian lookouts. Beware, you cry to Prague, but already the Lencians are prepared to fire at your fleeting forms. Pick a number from the random number table, and it looks like there's a total fail. We do not super total fail. The iron-tipped bolt comes screaming towards you, but your swift reflexes are more than a match for these deadly missiles. You open your hand and thrust your palm into Prague's back, pushing him forward and saving his life from the first bolt. You then sidestep to avoid being hit by the second. The lookouts fumble with their crossbows, desperate to fire again. But before they can reload, you have disappeared along the beach. Shortly, you reach a small secluded cove where Captain Prague discovers a rusty anchor. It is a landmark left on purpose by agents of King Sarnak to point the way to the cave where they have left your boat and provisions. You find the cave, and together you haul the boat down the beach and raise its coal-black sail before pushing it out onto the icy waters of the Tentarius. Once aboard, you trim the sail whilst Prague takes charge of the rudder. There is a good wind, and within minutes your craft is bobbing towards the western channel. 20 miles distant, you ask Prague if this dark estuary has a name. Yes, the Dracarim call it Dekushna's Channel, after the Dark Lord who once commanded the city fortress of Zagorst. They say it is a fitting dedication, for the waterway is as deadly and as treacherous as the creature after who it is named. Dawn breaks as you sail into the estuary of Dekushna's Channel. Prague keeps the boat in the centre of the wide waterway, where the slimy water is deepest, and the ever-present risk of grounding upon submerged debris is less likely to befall you. Soon you are enveloped by the chaotic wilderness of the Hell Swamp, and you feel your spirits drop, as if they are being leeched by some unseen vampire. The monotonous view of slime-laden mudflaps extends seemingly forever on every side, broken only occasionally by a dead, vine-strangled tree. You both take some comfort in the fact that there is a wind and it is blowing in a favourable direction. Despite the depressing scenery, you make good progress until, late in the afternoon, you're forced to lower the sail when you reach a point where, unexpectedly, the channel splits in two. Prague says that this split must have occurred recently, for it wasn't present the last time he sailed here. Reluctantly, he admits that he is not sure which way to go. Upon the edge of the left bank, in the middle distance, you see a circle of mud huts perched close to the channel's edge. You magnify your vision, but are unable to discern any signs of life. If you wish to enter the left channel, which passes close to the circle of mud huts, go here. If you wish to avoid passing the mud huts, well, we were told to be secret, so I'm going to go avoid the mud huts. The boat glides silently through the dark, syrupy water, and within minutes, the huts are lost to sight. Unlike the smooth, muddy banks of Dekushna's Channel, the shore of this newly formed passage comprise a triangle of exposed ruts. Exposed roots. And rotting vegetation. Yeah. A foul-smelling mist clings to these torn roots, exuding a corpse-like chill that, despite your Kai skills, makes you shiver involuntarily. You've been following the unwelcoming canal for nearly a mile when it starts to meander towards the east, and soon you are brought to a halt when an unexpected obstruction looms into view. A matted raft of floating frost-covered weeds has become ensnared upon the right bank, partially blocking the way ahead. Partially blocking the way ahead. You are observing the raft, looking for a way to steer about it, when suddenly your senses alert you to a hidden danger. Maury says, hopefully it will be a chill work day. You're taking advantage of having these days off from work to catch up on your YouTube, so that I can't keep teasing her about how she's 6 months behind schedule. It is nice having a little bit of a backlog, so that if you want to take a week or so off, there's stuff there. But more than that, and it starts getting to be a real hassle, because when you want to actually start posting stuff again, you have to scroll, pick video, scroll, pick the next video. So it's nice having about 1 page worth of stuff, so that it's still within scrolling distance and easy to administrate. We don't have alchemy, so we're forced to go the other way. You share your premonition of danger with Captain Prarg, and wisely he heeds your warning. He suggests you draw the sail to prevent the wind from propelling your boat towards the raft of weeds. Yet, once the sail is gathered, you still find yourself drifting ever nearer to the obstruction. With weapons drawn, you wait in tense expectation as the boat grazes the edge of the weed raft. If only Twitch let you just pipe it in. It does Vummer in one way, but not if you want to do the editing-ish stuff. And that's just easier to do the other way. And also that would mean I don't have control about when things go live. So like with the Paper Mario series, I wanted one going live a day every day, except on Wednesdays when it's choo-choo. Well, when it was Wajidai Wednesday, or now when it's Lone Wolf Wednesday. It's like I want it to skip that day, etc. That's not easy to. You don't have that level of control from Twitch. You can export from Twitch and it just exports now, or it exports as a whole video that you can say go live later, but you can't edit the start and end conveniently. At least not as conveniently as if you're doing it outside. For a few seconds there is an unnatural silence, then suddenly a gurgling screech rends the frosty air. Like sorcery-conjured demons, a dozen ghoulish creatures rise from the murky depths of the swamp, amid a seething froth of bubbles. Swiftly they climb from beneath the weed raft and slink from other nearby hiding places amongst the dank thickets of the adjoining bank. Within seconds they have you surrounded. Ali, cries Prarg, naming these ghoulish foes. He steps forward, brandishing his sword, and lashes out at the boldest of the dome-headed creatures as it tries to slip aboard. His razor-sharp blade severs its forearm at the wrists, sending a scaly, webbed hand spinning into the swamp, trailing green ichor. The beast screams as it falls over the side, yet no sooner has it vanished beneath the surface than two more of its kin grab the gunwales and attempt to haul themselves aboard. If you have a bow and wish to use it, turn to this page. Well, I mean, if they're already trying to climb in, we should probably sword them, but whatever, it wants us to use the bow. With lightning speed, you draw and fire arrows, sending the shafts whistling deep into the scaly bellies of the swamp creatures. The arrows are swift and deadly. The Chiquali screech in unison and throw their arms wide as they are hurled backwards into the mire. You string another arrow and glance over your shoulder at your companion, who, having lost his sword, is grappling with one of them in a desperate hand-to-hand combat. The fight is going badly for Prarg. The creature is by far the largest of the pack and much of its muscular body is protected by armor, crudely fashioned from human bones. Anxious to help your companion, you raise your bow and take aim, but the two are entwined and you dare not fire for fear of hitting the captain. Then a sudden swipe of the creature's horny fist knocks him to his knees, allowing you a moment's unobstructed view of his adversary. Remember to erase the arrows from your quiver. Fire for the creature's head. Fire at the sack which surrounds its throat. Or fire at its chest. No, shoot its head. You release your drawstring and send the arrow screaming towards its hairless skull. Immediately it strikes the beast above its right eye, and although it doesn't penetrate bone, the shock of the impact knocks it off its webbed feet and sends it tumbling into the water. You shoulder your bow and rush to help Prarg, who is lying barely conscious with his face in the shallow water, which is sloshing around at the bottom of the boat. You reach down and pull him over onto his back, and suddenly you feel two pairs of scaly hands grab hold of your cloak. With a loud growl, you spin around and unsheath your weapon in readiness to deal with your attackers. Two more Chiquali, their hides decorated with ritual scars that mark them as warriors of their tribe. At first they back away, shocked by the speed of your reflexes, but rapidly their nerve returns and half-crouched they glare at you. With their hideous bulging eyes, their throat sacs swell and collapse, with increasing rapidity as they approach the moment to strike. Then, with a shrill screech, they raise their claw-tipped hands and leap simultaneously towards your chest. They have some combat skill, but not that much help. I don't feel like we need to use our bonus damagey stuff. We kill them, they barely scratch us. As your slain enemies kneel over backwards and splash into the mire, you roll Prague onto his back, then watch as the remaining Chiquali, now leaderless, turn away and disappear as quickly as they'd come, slapping back to the cold, safety of their hiding places beneath the surface. Silence returns, and for a long moment you stay alert, suspecting some new trickery, and slowly you relax as it proves that they have gone. Aided by your healing skills, Prague makes a speedy recovery from the battering that he sustained in combat. The boat, too, has survived the attack, and you're able to continue without further delay. As soon as you pass the obstruction, you hoist the sail and catch the prevailing wind, which propels you northwards along the channel beyond. You are hungry now and must eat, unless you possess Ultra Super Giga Hunting, which we do. Gradually, over the next few hours, the level of the water rises until it covers most of the surrounding mud flats. Here and there, clumps of wire-hard briar stand isolated on tiny islands which are almost flush with the surface. They're the only features to break the dreary landscape. As sunset approaches, so the wind dies, until there is barely enough of a breeze to ruffle the canvas. Stoically, Prague gathers in the mainsail, and you ship the oars. Together you pull back against the scum-darkened water and continue on your way. Watchful of the current, for this will indicate your approach to the river Gorneni, but the water is so thick with silt and slime that neither of you can be certain of its direction, or even of its existence. It is almost dark when finally you reach the outflow of the Gorneni. It is a sluggish confluence, jammed with deadwood and silt banks, which obstruct most of its 50-yard width. You both realize that an attempt to navigate the river at night would be foolish, and you decide to set up camp at the river's edge and wait until first light before continuing. Using your Kai skills of detection, you scan the two riverbanks to determine which would be the safest place to set up camp, but you don't sense much difference between the two. I don't know. Left-hand side? Ugh. Within 10 yards of the west bank, the boat stops abruptly when it runs aground on the silted shallows. "Curse our fortunes," grumbles Prague, peering over the side. "I was a-hopin' that we'd be lucky enough to keep our feet dry." Wearily he searches through the provisions and produces a heavy rope, one end of which he proceeds to tie around the stem? Shouldn't it be stern? While you stow away the oars. Then together you slip into the cold, knee-deep mud and begin the laborious task of hauling your boat towards dry ground. You encamp on a strip of frozen loam and use the upturned boat as a shelter from the elements. As night falls, so too does the temperature. You cast your experienced eye across the darkening skies and see banks of cloud, heavy with snow, scudding the distant horizon. They are an unwelcome sight, the precursors to a winter storm. Prague volunteers to sit first watch, mindful that his need for rest is greater than yours. You insist that he be the first to get some sleep. For 4 hours you sit and scan the bleak horizon, your mind filled with unanswered questions about the mission and the dangers that you have yet to face. While you ponder what may await in your future, you remain watchful and alert, for the risk of an attack by the denizens of this swamp is ever present. Fortunately, the cold dissuades them, from leaving their lairs tonight, and your watch passes without incident. Then the time comes for you to awaken. With a distinct lack of enthusiasm, he takes over, while you settle down to catch a few hours of much-needed sleep. Prarg awakens you shortly before dawn. It has been snowing during the night, and the boat is covered with a thin layer of crisp white flakes. As you open your eyes, the cold air brings you swiftly to your senses, its sudden, unexpected chill making you shiver violently. However, this discomfort is momentary. Your Magna Chi skill of Nexus rights the imbalance, and a comfortable warmth returns to your frozen limbs. Carefully, you step from beneath the boat and cast your eyes across the marsh, which borders the river, and is now completely white. Tracks in the snow betray the nocturnal passage of several swamp creatures, though none are too large as to cause you undue concern. Prarg unpacks some provisions, and after a breakfast of dried meat, potatoes, ale, and blue cheese, you prepare the boat for your long voyage up the Gorneni River to Bear Rock. By mid-morning, the snow has returned, and your progress is soon hampered by a whipping wind that blows persistently in your faces. Shielded by your innate skills, the sub-zero temperature causes you little concern, as you tirelessly work the oars, but Prarg is not so fortunate, and as the hours pass, the cold saps his strength and is unable to continue rowing. You take over, rowing single-handedly, whilst your guide, swathed in blankets, mans the rudder and acts as your pilot, piloting you through the narrower sections of the Gorneni. You reach Bear Rock shortly before dusk. The landmark is a massive granite boulder, weather-worn in the shape of a huge bear, standing upright with its forepaws extended. It is a position on the west side of the Gorneni and overshadows a sheltered cove formed where, over the centuries, the river had undercut the bank. Here you bring the boat. You bring it ashore and make camp for the night. Over your evening meal, you discuss the next leg of your mission. In the morning, you will hide the boat before setting off cross-country towards Magna Arm's headquarters at Shugkona. 50 miles of dense timberland separate you from this town, and under the current conditions, you estimate it would take at least 2 days to reach. If you have animal mastery, you may turn here. If you do not have animal mastery, go here. We do not. Having finished your evening meal, you are faced with a difficult decision. Who should take the watch? Both of you are very tired, and after a whole day's rowing, you are less than enthusiastic about the prospect of trying to stay awake. I will volunteer for first watch because I was less affected by the cold. Prarg is understandably happy to accept the offer to stand first watch. He settles himself down to sleep in the relative comfort of the boat, and you pull your cloak about you as you climb on top of Bear Rock, where you begin a lonely vigil. For hours you sit on the windswept boulder, staring out through a curtain of swirling snow at the surrounding timberline. Despite your fatigue, you are alert, and your iron discipline pays off when, shortly before midnight, you sense movement at the forest's edge. Then, your super keen Kai senses detect an animal scent on the cold air, which you recognize immediately. It is Akataz. Quickly, you return to the boat and attempt to waken your companion, but he doesn't respond, and you're forced to shake him vigorously by the shoulders until he finally stirs into consciousness. What's wrong? He mumbles as he struggles to free himself from your grip. Wake up, Captain, you retort. There's trouble coming our way. The word trouble galvanizes Prarg into action. He throws off his blankets, unsheathes his sword, and follows as you lead the way up the riverbank. When you reach the crest, you see a dozen or more leathery black war dogs slinking out of the trees. Your senses are drawn to one of the red-eyed creatures, which instinctively you recognize as their leader. And you recall from past experience that Akatas are susceptible to psychic attack. Using your Magnakai abilities, you focus on the leading hound and prepare to launch a burst of psychic energy. Pick a number from the random number table. If you have Grandmaster Psychic Attack, add 4. We roll well enough that we don't get the really bad score. Your psychic attack penetrates its mind, causing it to yowl in pain and terror. The others halt in their tracks, visibly shaken by the horrible cries issuing from their leader, as he rolls over and over and over in the snow. You sense that the pack is torn between its desire to satisfy its hunger and its instinct for survival. The instinct for preservation wins out, and one by one the dogs turn and flee for the safety of the forest. Confident that they will not be back this night, you return to the boat to catch up some sleep, while Prague begins his turn on the ground. You wake with the dawn and fix a hasty breakfast before breaking camp. Within the hour, you are ready to begin your trek towards Magna-Arn's stronghold at Shug-Kona. But first you must dispose of the boat. Prague takes what provision he needs and then, with his sword, pierces several holes in the keel. You launch the boat towards the center of the river and come to watch as it slowly sinks beneath the surface. The moment it disappears, you leave the river's edge and set out into the trees. Deep in the forest, the snowfall is light because of the thick canopy of branches overhead, and you find the going easier than you had expected. You are struck by the unexpected beauty of the dense timberland during the winter, by the intricate webs of frost and trails between its blue-green patches, and by its frozen denizens. One sec, sorry. Prague leads the way, and swiftly you progress from one concealed marker to another, all having been placed by him on previous missions behind enemy lines. By using his system of hidden signposts, he is able to guide you safely through a maze of Dracarim outposts and patrol routes that riddle the timberland. Which seems weird because the Dracarim were supposedly desert people before, and yet now they're in the middle of a marshy forest. It is nearing noon, and you have covered more than 20 miles when he motions you to halt. He's found something unexpected. Nailed to a trunk is a small rectangle of orange-coloured metal. This is a Dracarim marker, he says after close examination. They use them to mark perimeter boundaries of their forest camps. It wasn't here the last time I came this way, which means that there is a new outpost somewhere. How close, you ask? Oh, half a mile at most. For a few moments you stop and listen to the silence of the forest. You close your eyes and concentrate, and through your use of aural skills, you detect noises away to the north. The sounds are mixed and many, and you are unable to discern their exact cause. Avoid them because we were told to avoid being seen. Prague makes a wide detour to the west in order to avoid the risk of walking straight into the arms of the enemy. The detour takes you across a steep and rugged part of the forest, previously unexplored by your guide. and progress here is slowed dramatically. You have covered less than 6 minutes when the failing... 6 miles. When the failing light and the increasing sightings of Dracarim patrols force you to halt and make camp for the night. From the safety of a tabletop 50 feet above the forest floor, you rope yourself to the trunk and begin settling down to sleep. You are hungry, and unless you possess ultra hunting, take 3 hit points of damage or eat. We do have ultra hunting. Prague makes a wide detour to the west to avoid the risk of walking straight into the enemy's arms. The detour makes you... The detour makes you pass across a steep and rugged part of the forest previously unexplored by your guide. And the progress here is slowed down dramatically. You have covered less than 6 miles when the failing light and... No. Okay, so we didn't turn the page. I thought I'd already turned the page. Blah! The night passes without incident, and you awake to a bright dawn, feeling refreshed by your long, uninterrupted sleep. Prague, too, has slept well, and he seems eager to start the journey to Shug Kona. Fresh snows have fallen during the night, and when you descend to the base of a tree, you discover several sets of footprints nearby. Your pathmanship senses tells you that they are little more than an hour old and were made by a Dracarim patrol. And then there are a different set of prints to the northeast. You set off towards the northeast, following a frozen stream that winds its way through the forest. Like a glistening crystal serpent, luck and your Kai skills keep you safe from the Dracarim patrols, and by noon you find yourself approaching the outskirts of Shug Kona. From the cover afforded by a small wooden footbridge that crosses the icy stream, you are unable to reconnoiter the heavily fortified Dracarim town. Log-lined trenches encircle most of the perimeter, fronted by pits filled with sharpened stakes to counter attacks by enemy cavalry. Mantlets and wheeled barricades defend the 4 highway approaches, and the whole line is manned by squads of Dracarim and Hammerland mercenaries. However, this formidable protection comprises just the first line of defense, behind which there are fieldworks, sharpened stakes, watchtowers, many of which bear recent compromise from the war. The town itself lies within the second circle, constructed of wood, and many of its outermost buildings over the years have been reduced to ash by Lencian firebombs. You learn from Prague that Magna Arn's headquarters are located at the very center, in a high tower which commands a clear view over the town and its defensive lines. At first sight, the Shug Kona defenses appear impregnable, but after having carefully observed the perimeter lines, you note 2 places where, with some luck, you might enter the town unobserved. The first is close to the east road, where an expanse of cleared ground is guarded only by a watchtower. The second is a section of the perimeter further south, where only 1 line of trenches has been completed. Yeah, we'll go with the only 1 trench location. Abandoning the shelter of the bridge, you work your way slowly along the ice-filled ditch to a point directly in front of the south trench. Here you settle to observe the Dracarim guards, who are dutifully keeping pace over this sector. Dutifully. Your keen hearing detects the sound of laughter, some clicks, and a few Giak curses. Judging by what you have heard, you hazard a guess that the guards are busy gambling with dice. You decide that now would be the best time to make your move. Whilst the guards are distracted from their duty, Prague insists that he lead the way. No. He has crossed here once before and knows a safe way through. The ground in front of the trench line looks clear, but there are concealed pits, just waiting to snare the careless. You nod your agreement and follow in his wake as he crawls a zigzagging route towards the distant trench. 2 minutes later, you reach the mound of frost-hardened earth. Silently, you put to Prague to get ready to attack. But before he can draw his sword, one of the enemy guards pops his head up to take a cursory glance over the parapet. He is less than an arm's length from you, and his eyes and mouth spring open with sheer terror when he finds himself staring into your face. Instinctively, you lash out with the edge of your hand, aiming for his right temple, hoping to render him unconscious before he can warn anyone else. But the shock of seeing you makes him reel backwards, and your blow misses by the smallest of margins. Pick a number from the random number table. We've done really, really badly. The guard crashes to the bottom of the trench, screaming, "Gaz Rekenarim! Gaz Rekenarim!" Instantly, other Dracarim react to his warning. They leap to their feet and thrust their spears upwards, as you yourself come leaping over the parapet. One spear tip gouges your leg. Another cuts deeply into your shoulder. But neither of the wounds are fatal. Lose 4 health. Sarnak and Lencia, cries Prague, as, side by side, you land in the trench and engage the Dracarim warriors. They are severely less skilled than us, and they have less health. It's surprising they even managed to scratch us. If you win combat, turn to here. As the last of the trench troopers falls lifelessly to the mud, Prague appears by your side, sheathing his blood-stained sword. "Come on, sire," he says. "We still have the advantage. Best to press it. We best use it before the Dracarim discover what happened here." Keen to maintain the element of surprise, you quickly leave the trench and rush across the remaining strip of open ground that separates you from the town's outlying dwellings. Prague points ahead to an alleyway that lies sandwiched between 2 burnt-out hovels, and immediately follows as he rushes towards its shadowy entrance. The dark alleyway leads to a square where an age ago the Grand Masons of Lencia encircled a shrine dedicated to the goddess Ashia, High Priestess of the Moon. But now this square is, in common with all the rest of the town, bears little resemblance to that. When the Dracarim first captured Ferndower, as it was then called, all the houses and public buildings which has stood for centuries were demolished. In their places were erected ungainly dormitories and ugly communal dwellings made of timber, culled from the surrounding forest. The town's once picturesque plazas and narrow winding streets were replaced with coldly functional military avenues of the marching order. From the shadow of a doorway, you and Prague observe a small covered wagon and a troop of weary Dracarim soldiers entering the square from the north. The small procession settles right and approaches an avenue and approaches an avenue which exits the square leading off to the west towards the center of the town. Magna Arn's headquarters are located in the middle of Shugkona, and with night fast approaching, Prague offers you follow the troop using the gathering darkness for cover. You are about to agree with him when suddenly the door of a nearby hovel swings open, and out into the alley steps 3 burly, drunken Dracarim. Instinctively, you both leap for cover to avoid being seen. Prague drops down below a stack of empty ale casks, while you dive behind a mound of rotten timber. The moment you hit the ground, you feel it sag beneath your weight, and then there is a moment of terror. Here Mary is thinking, oh gosh, please say I didn't use too much of the water and now it's sinking. The moment you hit the ground, you feel it sag beneath your weight, and then in a moment of terror, the ground collapses and you fall headlong into darkness. You've crashed through the rot-infested timbers of a trap door into a damp and dingy cellar. Pick a number from the random number table. If you possess Grand Hunt Mastery, add 1. That's a pretty shitty bonus to add to the random. Like, normally these are bonuses of like 2 or 4. 1 is barely worth mentioning. But we roll really well, so you crash down upon a stack of ale barrels, which in turn topple and fall, pinning you beneath them. Despite your landing, your cat-like reflexes save you from sustaining any serious injuries. Lose only 1 endurance. At once, you try to extricate yourself from beneath the heavy casks, but a sudden sound causes you to stop and stare at the broken trapdoor. In the alleyway above, you hear the sound of struggles. The Dracarim have found Prague and are attempting to overpower him. The sound of the struggles cease abruptly, and you hear gruff Dracarim voices yelling and cursing in anger. A yellowy light flares up and grows brighter as it approaches the trapdoor. Then the face of a Drakkar appears, framed in the ragged hole, illuminated grotesquely by the guttering flames of a torch. He thrusts the torch through the shattered door and peers into the cellar, his small, piggy eyes probing every corner. You remain completely still, and he fails to see you, lying beneath the clutter of barrels and casks. The moment the face and the torch disappear, you prise yourself free and scramble onto an upright barrel in order to reach the trapdoor. Prague and the Dracarim are no longer in the alley. Yet as you pull yourself through the hole, you catch sight of them in the square beyond. The Dracarim have captured Prague. They have tied his hands and are marching him along the West Avenue towards the center of town, towards Magna Arn's headquarters. You clamber out of the cellar and set off after the Dracarim, with weapon in hand, determined to free your companion from their clutches. But as you hurry into the Western Avenue, you see that they've already joined with the troops who are escorting a covered wagon. The wagon has halted, and you count more than 50 Dracarim jostling the helpless Prague, bullying and cursing him vilely. More than one voice calls out in the Giak tongue, "Let him be killed! Kill the Lencian spy!" Fearing that they are going to beat him to death, you decide to charge headlong into the crowd, in a desperate attempt to save him despite the overwhelming odds against your success. However, before you can act, an officer on horseback appears and commands the troop to order. An uneasy silence descends upon the group, and then, dutifully, they step away from Prague and form up in a column facing the officer and his mount. Prague, who has been left lying on the ground, barely conscious, is bundled into the wagon. The officer raises his hand and the wagon trundles off along the avenue towards the distant square, with a troop of soldiers marching smartly in its wake. You follow and observe, taking in every detail that might help you free your companion. When you reach the square at the end of the avenue, you discover it is dominated by a wall tower. It is Magna'an's tower, his flag emblazoned with the emblem of a black eagle clutching two fiery swords, flutters lazily from its slender wooden spire. The wagon draws up the field. The wagon draws up in front of a building adjacent to the tower, and Prague is dragged unceremoniously inside. Judging by the bars which adorn its windows and the armed guards at its entrance, you hazard a guess that this is the Shugkona jail. Patiently you watch the square for several minutes while you try to formulate a plan. The assembled troops are galvanized into action when an order from their officer sends them off in pairs to search the whole town for anyone else that's a spy. Several Dracarim come close to your location, and you are forced to seek somewhere else to hide. Looking around, you can see two dwellings that might be safe. A warehouse or a stables. No horses warehouse. You enter the warehouse through a broken window and soon find a hiding place among hundreds of rolls of canvas that are being stored on the ground floor. Periodically, Dracarim enter and search the length and breadth of the building, yet they fail to detect you. While you are hiding from their search parties, you consider your companion's plight and grow ever more fearful for his safety. You are also very anxious that, under torture, he might reveal your identity and the reason that you have come to the town. You are determined not to allow this to come to pass, and so, as midnight approaches, you slip away from your hiding place and make your way stealthily towards the jail. The dark alleys and streets surrounding the jail are illuminated by 100 guttering brands. Really? Magna'an's soldiers are everywhere, casting their suspicious eye over every section of the nighted town. Oh, but they are so by their own torches. Alright. Your Kai skills keep you hidden from sight, and soon you reach the jail, but only to discover that the entrance is now heavily guarded by a platoon of Dracarim. You abandon the hopes of entering by the front door and instead circle around to the alley, at the rear of the building, where you discover a line of windows, each one crisscrossed with iron bars. Instinct leads you to the last in the line, and you peer inside to find Captain Prague lying on a bed of filthy straw. He looks in poor shape. His eyes are bruised, his lips swollen, and his bushy moustache caked with dry blood. You whisper his name, and he turns towards the cell window. Then he sees you, and suddenly his whole face lights up with renewed hope. Thank the gods you are still free! The Dracarim tried to make me talk, but I have kept silent. They know nothing about the mission. You examine the cell window and reassure him that you will soon release him from the jail. But he insists you do not risk your life on his account. Listen, sire. I have learned that Magna'an isn't here in Shugkona. When the jailers beat me, I feigned unconsciousness and heard them say that their leader is at a place called Antar. It is a ruined temple 40 miles to the north. They talked of certain victory now that their warlord has found the stone. Please, I beseech you, continue without me. Go to Antar and defeat Magna'an before it is too late. Then a yellow flicker of torchlight at the end of the alley cuts short the conversation. It is a Dracarim patrol. They turn the corner and come marching towards you with purposeful steps. Do not give up hope, Captain. I will come back for you. This quarter of the town is now teeming with enemy soldiers, and as you hurry away from the cell window, you know that you are in grave danger of being caught if you cannot find somewhere to hide. At length you discover a refuge on the far side of the main square, an empty grain storage tower that overlooks Magna Arn's headquarters and the jail. It's here that you spend a sleepless night contemplating the mission and the fate of your captured companion. Now that it appears Magna Arn has found the Doomstone, you know that you should do as Captain Prague insists and try to reach Anta and confront him before he can use his newfound power against the Lencians. But you are loath to abandon your guide. You promised Prague that you would help him escape, and Akai Grandmaster doesn't break his word. The captain has been captured as a spy, and he can expect no mercy from the Dracarim. Soon after dawn, you witness some activity in the main square that confirms your worst fear. A squad of engineers arrive and are working to construct a raised wooden platform in the center of the square. Soon their work is complete. A covered wagon arrives. The engineers unload a large lump of black oak, which they place in the middle of the platform. And as you focus on this block, a shiver runs the length of your spine, the moment you realize its grim purpose. The solid lump of oak is an executioner's block. Its surface is cut and scarred by blows from a heavy axe, and its sides are stained dark with the blood of 100 Lencian prisoners who have already lost their lives upon it. One sec, sorry. Suddenly, your thoughts are disturbed by the rhythmic stamp of marching feet. Your eyes are drawn to the avenue which runs alongside Magna Arn's headquarters. Down the thoroughfare come a regiment of Dracarim. They file into the square and form up in a line facing the platform. There is an open wagon drawn by a brace of half-starved oxen, which emerges from the alleyway beside the jail. Captain Prague is standing in the rear of the wagon with his hands tied behind his back. Despite the bumpy ride, he stands rigidly at attention, proudly defiant in the face of imminent death. The wagon halts and the captain is dragged up onto the platform by 3 brutish jailers. He is made to kneel down before the block as a Dracarim officer hurriedly reads the contents of a scroll to the assembled troops. He is condemning the captain to death for spying. When he finishes the reading, he takes a 2-handed axe from one of the jailers and walks slowly across the platform towards the block. He intends to carry out the execution personally. If you have a bow and wish to use it... Okay, we'll try shooting the executioner. You take an arrow from your quiver, place it in your bow. In readiness to shoot, you gauge the range at 40 yards, and you take aim at the Dracarim officer. You wait for him to reach the execution block, and at the very moment he does so, you release your straining bowstring and send your arrow arcing through the air towards his head. We roll well. We have both the Super Silver Bow and Grey Band Bow Grand Mastery, so it's not possible for us to fail. Your arrow strikes with deadly accuracy. The Dracarim officer drops the axe and clutches the shaft, which has suddenly buried itself in his throat. He tries to scream, but the arrow has destroyed his larynx, and slowly he topples over the platform without uttering a single sound. For a few moments, the assembled Dracarim are transfixed, until a solitary voice squeaks out in alarm. Up there, the arrow, it came from up there. As one, the soldiers draw their weapons and rush towards the ground floor entrance to the grain tower. You retreat from the window and look around for a means to escape, as already you can hear the first of the enemy climbing the stairs. With fear running cold in your veins, you cross to the window on the far side of the tower. Outside, below the window, you see a lancer sitting astride a warhorse. His lance is sheathed in a tube like scabbard fixing, fixed to the rear of his saddle. In his hand, he holds aloft a heavy-bladed cavalry saber. He is staring at the onrushing soldiers and completely unaware that you are barely a few yards away. You climb onto the window ledge, draw your weapon, and leap onto the unwary lancer below. Roll a random number on the number table. If you present Hunt Mastery, add 3. We have rolled quite poorly. You crash down on the unsuspecting lancer. However, the shock of your impact does not unseat him, and desperately he struggles to fend you off. He wounds your forearm with his saber before you succeed in knocking him out of the saddle, lose 3 hit points. You seize control of the horse and take it across the square, unholstering the lance as you gallop towards the mass of Dracarim soldiers who stand between you and the platform. You steer the horse towards the platform, and the troops scatter before you. All that is except one, a Death Knight, Sergeant, an elite Dracarim warrior. He curses his comrades for their cowardice. And he curses his comrades for their cowardice, and as you bear down on him, with your lance leveled at his chest, he draws his sword and gets ready to meet your attack head on. Then the tip of your lance strikes his breastplate, and you are forced back in your saddle with a jolt that leaves you breathless. Pick a number from the random number table. If your current health is above 12, add 2. It is. We roll more than 0, so we succeed. If the tip of your lance penetrates the Death Knight's armor, killing him instantly. The force of the blow is such that it snaps the lance in 2, and nearly knocks you clean out of the saddle. You manage to hold tight and recover. Moments later, you reach the platform to see Captain Prague is struggling to break free of his jailers. He succeeds and runs towards you. With a yell, he leaps from the platform and lands astride the rump of your horse. "Go, Lone Wolf! Go!" he shouts excitedly. You dig your heels into the horse's flanks and take off through the confused mass of Dracarim towards the avenue on the north side of the square. Prague's hands are still tied behind his back, and in order to stop himself from falling, he is forced to hang on to your cloak with his teeth. You gallop out of the square and along the... Yeah, I feel like this was... Maybe the other people don't know about... whatever. You gallop out of the square and along the northern avenue, which is flanked by the barracks and hovels. Arrows come whistling from their windows, but they are aimed poorly and fly wide from their mark. You glance over your shoulder and see that some Dracarim horsemen are grouping at the exit of the square in order that they might give chase. You urge the horse onwards, and as you speed towards a distant corner, you use your Magnikai skills of Nexus to loosen Prague's bonds. Minutes later, you turn the corner and see the road which leads out of Shug Kona. Your spirits rise, but they are dashed when you see that the route of escape is blocked. A barricade has been thrown across the road which leads north of Shug Kona. The Dracarim posted here have been alerted by the sounds of chaos coming from the square, and hurriedly they are trundling an armoured wagon across the gap in the centre to seal off all exit. You slap your horse's rump and gallop towards the shrinking gap. But 3 spear-wielding guards see you approach, and they rush forward to challenge your weapon. If you possess Psychic Surge and have reached the appropriate rank, you may click this, which is what we probably therefore press. And if you have neither of these, you may go do this. We'll go with Psychic Surge. You draw upon your mental powers to launch a blast of psychic energy at the 3 Dracarim sentries. The effect is instantaneous. They begin to shake uncontrollably, and all 3 drop their spears. Unable to move aside, you trample them into the ground as you gallop through the gap in the... Sorry. They begin to shake uncontrollably, and all 3 drop their spears. Unable to move aside, you trample through them into the ground as you gallop through the gap in the barricade and race along the road below. Beyond. You have passed successfully through the inner defensive line, but as Prague quickly points out, you have yet to reach the outer defences of Shug Kona. Uncertainty haunts your thoughts as you race across the desolate no man's land that lies between the inner and outer defences of Shug Kona. Soon you catch sight of the outer defences. They comprise a line of man-sized wooden casks filled with earth, behind which there stands a squad of archers, their bows loaded and ready to fire. You steal your horse away from the road and set off across across rough, snowy ground towards a distant line of trenches. Fortunately, the defences at the northern perimeter are much weaker than elsewhere. The trenches are empty, the guard having left earlier to watch Prague's execution. However, the rough entertainment still soon takes its toll upon your hearing. The trenches are empty, the guards having left earlier to witness the execution. The terrain soon takes its toll upon your tired horse. He is near to exhaustion as you approach the trenches. You fear he is not strong enough to make the jump. Pick a number from the random number table. If you have animal mastery, add 3. If you have reached a high enough rank, add a further 1. We roll really, really well. Despite its fatigue, the horse clears the trench and carries you safely beyond the range of the Drakrim archers. For half a mile, you skirt along the edge of the Tozaz forest. Then, the moment that the enemy are lost to your sight, you rejoin the road and make your escape northwards. As you ride along the road of frozen earth, the sky begins to darken ominously, and the weather closes in. What begins as a light flurry of snow soon deteriorates into an icy squall, which cuts through you like a knife. Your skills protect you from the cold, but Captain Prague is not so fortunate. He doesn't utter a word of complaint, but you can sense that he is greatly discomforted. Moreover, your horse, already tired from the exertions of the escape, has been greatly weakened by the icy winds. Eventually, it can carry you no further, and you're forced to halt and dismount. Your senses warn you that enemy cavalry are in pursuit. You are a few miles ahead of them, but their mounts are fresh and the distance is rapidly shrinking. You're about to suggest to Prague that you abandon the horse and seek shelter in the surrounding forests when you notice that the lull in the storm and the falling snow thins out to reveal an unexpected sight. You have stopped near the crest of a hill. Below you, the forest road descends to a stone bridge which crosses a frozen stream. A rough log cabin stands beside the bridge. Then, a thin trail of wood rises from its crooked chimney, indicating that it is occupied. At the rear, you see stables, and at once you sense the presence of horses. If you wish to approach the cabin and attempt to steal a fresh mount from the stables or otherwise get one, turn here. If you wish to abandon your exhausted horse and continue on foot, no, we'll go for another horsey. Cautiously, you descend the slippery hill track and make your approach to the bridge. The thick snow muffles your steps and you're able to reach the cabin without alerting its occupants. You motion to Prague to take hold of the horse and keep lookout whilst you investigate the stables. Silently, you slip alongside the cabin and pass beneath its solitary window. If you wish to look through the window, turn here. If you wish to ignore the window and make your way directly to the stables, let's not risk getting seen. Once inside the stables, you discover 2 horses. One is old and lame, the other is young and powerful. Using your powers of animal control, you subdue them and lead the younger horse, a grey mare, from its stall. As you leave the stable, you see Prague pointing frantically towards the crest of the hill. A troop of Dracarim cavalry are descending towards the bridge. Quickly you mount the mare and help Prague to climb upon her back. Then the enemies see you and immediately they sound a horn. Moments later, an old Drakkar appears in the door to the cabin. He is holding a boar musket, and when you fail to obey his command to halt, he levels the primitive gun at you and pulls the trigger. Random number table says medium result. We probably take a medium amount of damage. There is a loud bang and a grey cloud billows from the muzzle of the musket. It startles your horse, but you swiftly control the animal again and urge it forwards, out onto the road. You make your escape northwards, hidden from the eyes by your other efforts. Quickly you make your escape northwards, hidden from the eyes of your pursuing enemy by the acrid cloud of gunpowder smoke. Your ears are ringing, but otherwise you escape unharmed. Prague, however, has not been so lucky. His arm and shoulder bleed from where it has been grazed by buckshot. You halt as soon as you can and use your healing skills to mend his wounds before continuing. The use of power reduces your own health points by 3. The mare is strong and sure-footed and quickly covers 8 miles before you encounter something on the road, which makes you halt for a second time. In the distance, you see a makeshift roadblock. Several trees have been hacked down, and they are strewn haphazardly across the road. Sure. No, sorry. In the distance, you see a makeshift roadblock. Several trees have been hacked down, and they are strewn haphazardly across the road. Behind this obstruction are several armored Dracarim waiting eagerly for you to appear. At once, you leave the road and take cover in the forest. The trees hereabouts are too dense to allow anyone to go on horseback. Yes. Because, as I said, they can basically only walk. So reluctantly you abandon the maze and enter on foot. At once you leave the road and take cover in the forest. The trees hereabouts are too dense to allow you to enter on horseback, so reluctantly you abandon your mare and enter on foot. Your instinct and pathmanship skills lead you in a westerly direction. You cover more than 5 miles before the trees thin out. You emerge from the forest and are greeted by a spectacular sight. Before you lies a vast frozen lake, more than a mile wide, at the point at which you stand. An icy wind whips across its glistening surface, stirring freshly fallen snow into eddies that whirl and dance like spinning tops. Silently, you stare across the lake at the distant tree line, and your mind is filled with doubt. The temple of Antar lies beyond. Of that, you are sure, and the quickest way to reach it would be to traverse the lake. There is no cover, and you have no way of knowing if the ice is thick enough to support you all the way across. However, to go around the lake would delay you by hours, giving your pursuers ample time to catch up. We don't have pathmanship, and we don't have the high rank, so we are forced to use normal skills. Suddenly you sense that Prague is walking directly towards a patch of thin ice. You shout a warning, but it is already too late. A loud crack echoes across the lake as the surface shatters. In a terrible moment, your companion disappears feet first into a seething pool of icy grey water. We do have a rope. You rush towards your companion, unshouldering your backpack. Once you're as close to the hole as you dare go, you tear open the pack and take out your coiled rope. He is floundering in the icy water and can barely keep his head above the surface. You hurl one end of the rope towards him and as he makes a desperate grab for it with numbed fingers. He gets a grip the first time and manages to hold on tightly as you haul him out of the water. His skin is violet and his entire body is shaking uncontrollably. Using your healing skills, you transmit some of your body warmth through your hands to his chest and face. Within a few minutes, he comes out of the state of shock, and his body returns to its normal temperature. Your prompt action saved his life, but he is also drained you of 3 health via the healing. Captain Prague recovers consciousness and slowly his strength returns until he is able, with your help, to regain his feet. He is cold and soaking wet. But you sense that he is no longer in a state of shock. He will survive. Carefully, you both retreat from the hole and make a wide detour around this section. An hour later, you reach the far side of the lake and enter the trees beyond. You move deeper into the forest, maintaining a steady pace. Here, in this part of the Tozaz, the snowfall underfoot is light because of the canopy of thick branches overhead, and you make good progress. You've been walking for an hour when a shivery rustle brings you abruptly to a halt. You look up and a miniature snowslide falls from a branch above, covering your face and shoulders with a digital? No, with a deluge of powdery snow. Prague laughs as he watches you spluttering, and as you wipe your eyes, you glimpse a grey-winged bird fluttering away to the west. By the gods, says Prague. I am hungry, leaning weakly against the tree branch. What I'd give for a side of beef and a plate of boiled beets. The captain has not eaten since you reached Shugkona, and you can see that after the rigors of his capture and escape, he is sorely in need of food. Unless he is able to eat, he will soon collapse. Give him a meal. We aren't out of meals. You take bread and dried meat from your backpack and offer it to him. He accepts the food and settles himself at the base of a tree where he hungrily consumes all of it. Meanwhile, you scan your surroundings for the ever-watchful eye of the enemy. For the last hour, you've had the growing suspicion that something has been watching you. Your senses detect the presence of a hostile enemy closing from the east. Now the suspicions have become a firm belief. And the moment Prague finishes his meal, you suggest closing it. No, you suggest... Sorry. Now the suspicion has become a firm belief, and the moment Prague finishes his meal, you suggest that you'll be on your way as swiftly as possible. During your trek through the forest, Prague tells you a little about the history of the land. You learn that the whole of Nearus, was once known as Northern Lencia until it was lost to an invading Dracarim during the Dark Dawn War. Many crusades and campaigns have been launched over the centuries to try and reclaim the territory, and none until now have been successful. The Dracarim built a fortress on the ruins of the Lencian capital, which was called Gamir. They renamed Gamir just after their victory, but later, when the Dracarim allies signed themselves to the Dark Lords, they changed their shape in solidarity? The Dracarim built a fortress on the ruins of the Lencian capital, which was called Gamir, which they named Nagamir after their victory. But later, when the Dracarim allied themselves to the Dark Lords of Helgadad, the capital was renamed to Dark in their honor. Okay. As dusk approaches, you happen by chance upon a forest trail, and immediately your tracking skills tell you that it has only recently been constructed. Hoofprints frozen beneath the snow, and several sets of footprints tell you the trail is used by more than a dozen riders and armored foot soldiers within the last week. We don't have alchemy, no magic for us, so we're forced to turn here. Guided by your intuition, you set off with Prague along the forest trail heading west. Soon your tracking skills warn you that you are nearing an enemy encampment. You signal your discovery to Prague, and he follows as stealthily as you enter. As stealthily you enter the undergrowth and slip past a line of Dracarim sentries. From the cover of a dense forest bracken, You observe their camp. You count more than 24 soldiers, horses, wagons, and shelters. Prague points to the emblem which adorns all of their uniforms and equipment. A black eagle clutching two fiery swords. These are the two Kodar warlord Magnan's personal guard, he says. We would be wise to avoid them. You're not in agreement. Together you slip away from the camp and head north through the trees. You are drawn in this direction by something your senses have detected. It is a strong aura of energy, an evil energy that you feel must be radiating from the Doomstone. Within a few minutes you stumble upon a clearing where stands the majestic ruins of an ancient temple. At once you know that this is the temple of Anta, and you sense that the Doomstone is here, lying deep within the ruins. From the cover of the forest's edge, you observe the temple, taking in all the details, your eyes scouring every inch of its leprous grey interior for a way of gaining entry without being detected. Much of the temple is derelict, yet it is still an imposing edifice. Especially the squat stone tower, which stands intact at its center. Its walls are covered with intricate designs that must have taken centuries to complete. Yet, though you admire the craftsmanship, you find the embellishments wholly repulsive, for they depict and glorify acts of great evil. The ruins themselves are deserted, except for a wide ramp of stone which leads to a pair of huge bronze doors set into the base of the tower. The doors are open, but they are guarded by two of Warlord Magnan's Tukodak. We don't have advanced invisibility, so we have to go this way. The open doors to the tower appear to offer the only means of getting inside. Because of this, you decide that you will try to overpower the guards who are standing there. Armed with your formidable skills, and with dusk fast turning to darkness, you are confident you can succeed. You tell Prague, who is unarmed, to wait here at the forest's edge until you signal him to come. Then you stalk towards the tower, your approach camouflaged by your You're approached masked by your camouflage skills. At first the way is easy, but the last 20 yards of ground to the stone ramp have been cleared of temple debris, and the area is completely open and devoid of cover. Pick a number from the random number table. If you have a high enough rank, add 1. If you have another higher rank, add 2. These do not accumulate. We roll really poorly. In fact, we roll critical fail. You are nearing the base of the stone ramp when you are seen by the guards. He grunts a warning to his comrade. Quickly, you draw your weapon in readiness to meet them in combat. They level their spears and move down the ramp towards you. Combat, combat, combat. They literally barely scratch us. You step away from the two dead Tukodak, sheath your weapon, and then signal to Prague that the coast is clear. He emerges from the trees and hurries you to his side. Hurries to your side. He praises your combat skill and then helps you hide the bodies of the two slain guards beneath some undergrowth in the surrounding ruins. Before you leave, a quick search of their backpacks reveals the following items: dagger, sword, bow, arrows. If you wish to take any, we've used a lot of arrows, so we should replenish our arrow collection, and we could always have another meal. Back up to 10. Beyond the doors, you discover a large echoing hall lit by a circle of torches which flare dimly in the moist gloom. The atmosphere is saturated with a malevolent power, an evil that is welling up from somewhere deep below ground. Immediately to your right, you see a ladder which ascends to the upper floor of the tower. To the upper floor of the tower. And to the left, there is a wide staircase leading down. Your senses scream a warning as you approach the staircase and begin to descend. But this time you choose to ignore your trusty instincts. The aura of evil that pervades this place has its source, and you must Must destroy it. The staircase leads down to a winding torchlit hall which passes through a series of narrow chambers, all empty and derelict except one. Eventually, you come to an iron portal, and you stop for a few moments to examine the intricate engravings that embellish its age-blackened surface. You realize the engravings are not decorations, they are part of some sophisticated combination lock. So 15, 14, 12, 9 question mark. It decreases by 1, then 2, then 3, then presumably 4. So 4 from 9 is 5. A host of writhing dragons are entwined above the dial, edged in ancient numerals. Let's try the number 5. This is not the correct answer. Reluctantly, you abandon your attempt to open the portal, and turn instead to a sloping passageway, which descends to a deeper subterranean level of this ancient temple. You set off down the damp passage, and at length it ends at a vault, where the only exit appears to be a vertical pit. Cautiously, you approach the pit and veer through its barred grille. To your surprise, you see the floor of another torchlit passageway less than a dozen feet below. With Prague's help, you pull open the rusty cover and lower yourself through the hole and down into the corridor below, followed by your companion. The pervading aura of evil is stronger, and you feel certain that with every step you are drawing closer to finding the Doomstone. You are thinking to yourself that perhaps your progress has been almost too easy when you sense some imminent danger. Pick a number from the random number table. If you possess grand pathsmanship, add 2. We do mediumly well. Your acute hearing detects the faint sounds of stone grating on stone. You notice that loopholes are forming at chest height along both walls of the passageway, revealing the sticky, sharpened tips of venom-coated spears. "Get down!" you yell, and throw yourself flat to the damp stone floor. Moments later, a volley of deadly spears hurtles from out of the walls to smash and splinter in the passageway. Your warning has saved you and Prague from certain death, yet, unluckily, one of the spear tips ricochets and gorges Prague's shoulder. You tend to your companion's wounds, using your Magnikai curing to neutralize the venom before it does too much fatal work. Your swift action saves him, but it drains you of energy. Lose 2 health. "Come, Prague," you say urgently. "We must hurry. I sense more traps." Obediently, the captain follows you as you make your way speedily along the passageway towards a distant torchlit chamber. Upon reaching the chamber, you are brought skidding to a halt by an unexpected sight. The room is constructed entirely of polished black rocks. Revealed in the torchlight is a throne of rough-hewn marble, where sits the skeletal remains of a warrior clad in mouldering furs. Bare bone gleams dully through its clinging mass of muscles and sinew, now shrunken to an iron-hard texture, and upon its skull there is perched a helm of solid gold. Set into the face of the helm is an emerald as large as your fist. Prague approaches the throne, tempted by the magnificent emerald, but he halts the moment you warn him the helm is protected by a magical trap. You sense a powerful spell of warding encircles the throne. To touch the crown will activate the spell, unleashing a blast of destructive energy. Get down, Mr. President. He's only our tour guide, but yup. The thought of being blown to atoms, we know about atoms, serves to dampen Prague's curiosity, and sheepishly he returns to your side. You give the booby-trapped throne a wide berth and leave the chamber by a smooth-walled tunnel in the far wall. But you have taken no more than a dozen steps when the chill of premonition runs like a trickle of icy cold water down your spine. You halt and reach for your weapon when a loud voice booms, "Welcome, lone wolf, to your tomb." Instinctively, you know that this is the voice of warlord Magnaan. The chilling echo of his voice is drowned by new sounds, the rattle of chains and the rumble of falling stones. You shout a warning to Prague, and he dives aside only just in time to avoid being crushed by a heavy portcullis. The great stone portal slams down, partitioning the passageway and separating you from the captain. The dust has barely settled when a section of the passage wall slides open behind Prague, and a trio of his bodyguards leap out and seize him. Your companion is unarmed and quickly and brutally overpowered. Anger floods your mind as you vow to get even with these cruel Dracarim, but they are not impressed by your threats. They are aware of your exceptional skills, but feel safe behind the portcullis. With a knife held to his throat, they taunt you and dare you to retaliate. If you have a bow and wish to use it, okay, I'll shoot you. You quickly draw an arrow and take aim. But the Tukadak cower behind Prague, using him as a human shield. Put down your bow, or I will have my guards kill your companion. At once your anger subsides. You sense that it is no idle threat, and reluctantly you obey the command. From out of the shadows of the secret passage steps Warlord Magnaan. He is a huge man, not much over 6 feet tall, but massively built. His body is sheathed in finely crafted armor that fits his frame like a glove, and his features are coarse and foreboding, accentuated by a fresh battle scar that runs diagonally from the top of his scalp to a point near the lobe of his left ear. Arrogantly, he approaches the portcullis and stares unblinkingly into your eyes. For a moment, you consider attacking him, but your senses detect that he is surrounded by a field of energy so strong that already you feel it leeching your psychic powers. He reaches to a pocket inside his cloak and takes out a large black gemstone, which he holds level with his sneering face. Scarlet veins glow within the depths of the stone, swirling and undulating, as if they were alive. Waves of dizziness force you to your knees as the power of the evil stone, washes over you, bleeding out your strength and will to resist. I've been waiting for you, Star Fox. I mean, Lone Wolf, says Magnaan with a condescending tone. I've known your plan ever since my spies told me of your arrival at Vadira. After all, there could be but one reason why the great master of the Kai would come to Lencia at this time. Yet, as you can see, it is already too late for you to stop me. Magnaan turns to his Tukadak guards and orders them to take Prague away. You try to protest, but cannot find strength enough to voice the words. The warlord smiles at your weakness. Know you this, Grand Master, now that I possess the stone, nothing can stand in my way. You were the only threat to my victory, but now even you are no longer a threat. With this, he steps away from the portcullis and turns to follow his guards as they drag Prague into the secret passage. Farewell, he says sardonically before disappearing, and remember my first words to you. Welcome to your tomb. With these chilling words echoing in your mind, you watch as he disappears into the passage and as the wall closes behind him. A few moments after the wall closes, there is a sound like a distant thunder. Then a shudder runs through the floor and clumps of dirt begin to fall from cracks in the ceiling. Your strength is returning, but before you can attempt to escape, there is an almighty explosion, and a deluge of rock and damp earth cascades into the passageway. The ceiling and floor are being pulled in opposite directions, and with a grating cry of tortured stone, the heavy portcullis shatters in two. Quickly, you crawl beneath a broken section that lies at an angle to the wall. You take cover as countless tons of rock and earth rain down from above. When at last the destruction ends, you find yourself trapped in a narrow triangular space between the heavy portcullis and the wall. Your quick thinking has saved you from physical injury, but as far as you can tell, you are now buried in a collapsed level of the temple, hundreds of feet below the surface. Confident in the knowledge that, at worst, your stamina and Kai skills alone can keep you alive for several days, you begin the slow and laborious task of digging your way from the tomb. For 15 days, you tunnel through a solid wall of earth and broken rock, using your weapons and bare hands, sustained all the while by little more than your indefatigable spirit and will to survive. You are near to giving up? No, Mr. Wolf. I expect you to die. Yes. You are near to giving up when midway through the 16th day of your internment, you suddenly break through into a passage that is free of debris. Weak but alive, you'll drag yourself into the empty tunnel and collapse on the damp, fungi-covered floor. Reduce your current endurance points to 15 if you are above. So no matter how much health you had, come down to this level. You eat everything in your backpack, and you don't get to have any potions of healing. Many hours pass before you regain consciousness. And although your terrible ideal has left you physically weakened, your mind is still sharp and resolute as ever. You are determined to find a route back to the surface and continue your quest. For even though Magnaan now has Captain Prague and the Doomstone of Dark, there may yet be a way to defeat him. Before he entombed you into the passage, he admitted that you alone possessed a threat to his quest for victory. Now that he thinks you dead, you are sure that you could turn this to your advantage. You stagger to your feet and peer along the gloomy passageway, in either direction, east and west. You are anxious to pursue a route that will lead you quickly to the surface, and when you detect cold, damp air wafting from the west, you hurry that way, but you are soon disappointed. The passageway ends abruptly at the edge of a vast chasm formed by the same destructive powers that buried you alive. At the bottom is a great fissure. At the bottom of the great fissure is a river of black water, and high above you glimpse a few rays of winter daylight filtering through a tiny rent in the darkness. It looks so far distant that you abandon any thought of reaching it from here and return along the passageway. A few hundred yards beyond where you emerge, you discover an octagonal chamber bathed in eerie green light. The light is emitted by fungi which blanket the walls and ceiling and illuminate a strange circular door that has an octagonal lock. You have been in the chamber for a few seconds when your senses detect something is wrong. Invisible fumes rise from the fungi, and in your weakened state they are making you dizzy and nauseous. We have Ultra Super Giga immunity to environment. Although you have been greatly weakened by your internment, your powers of Nexus are still sufficient to neutralize the effects of these toxic fumes. As your mind clears and your strength returns, you approach the circular door and take a closer look at its strange octagonal lock. It comprises a keyhole and a series of numbers, although one of the numbers is clearly missing. Experience tells you that this is a dual combination lock. One can be opened by key or by tapping the correct number in the sequence. We do not have the key. You step closer to the door and carefully examine the combination lock. You're confident with your skills and experience you will soon have it. Open without too much difficulty. Here is the sequence of numbers. So 180, 92. 2, 3, 4, 25, 30. I mean, this side changes downwards by 10. This side appears to be changing by a factor of 5, so it should be 35. No, this is not the correct answer to the riddle. Continue to the next section with your quest. This is 2 we've got wrong. After several No, it was 1 attempt game. After 1 unsuccessful attempt to open the lock, you abandon the door and leave the chamber. You're fearful of what might happen if you stay any longer, and so you retrace your steps to the place where you first emerged from the collapsed passage. You pause for a few minutes and catch your breath. Then you continue along the tunnel until, once more, you find yourself standing at the edge of the chasm. You scan the vast and dismal fissure, hoping to find a way to escape. I don't have magic. After several minutes surveying the gloomy chasm, you notice 2 promising features. One is situated 50 feet or so directly above your head. At first, it merely looks like a narrow ledge of rock, with a grey semicircular shadow poised above it. But after you look closely, you see that it is the mouth of a passageway. The second feature lies far below. It is a large brick-lined tunnel situated at the eastern edge of the chasm floor, through which the waters of the dark river flow. This too might offer a way out. I would rather climb than get down into the water. At first the ascent is easy, but as you approach the ledge, the wall becomes dry and crumbly, making it difficult for you to find purchase with your toes and fingers. Pick a number from the random number table. If you have Grand Hunt Mastery, add 2. If you are this high enough rank, add 1. We roll well enough. The dry and crumbling surface is the worst you have ever attempted to climb, but it does not defeat you. Your consummate climbing skills, not sliming skills, and natural grace of movement ensure that you do not falter. You clear the section of the chasm wall and safely reach the ledge. From here, you hurry into the new tunnel in search of a clear route to the surface. Unfortunately, your hopes for a quick escape are dashed when you arrive at a ruined staircase. It leads to a landing where you are confronted by the corpse of a Dracarim guard slumped beside a mound of rubble that is blocking the stairs. A quick examination of the body reveals that both his arms are broken, injured and trapped here by the falling rocks. It appears that they died of thirst. Search their body. We do not find a key, sadly. I was hoping that we would find the, we will take the arrows. I can't. Ball of string. I can take the ball of string. What the hell is kicker? Oh, okay, it's the third currency, yes. And an empty bottle. I'm not able to carry anything else. Pick up the silver rod, why not? Satisfied that you haven't overlooked anything, you may continue. With stoic determination, you begin the laborious task of clearing away the rock and rubble which fills the stairwell. You are fearful that it might take you several days, and so it is a welcome surprise when after only a few minutes' work you see a gap appearing at the top of the mound. A gust of cold wintry air wafts through the breach, rekindling your hopes of reaching the surface. Revived by the cold, clean air, you attack the rubble with renewed vigor. But then your hopes are shaken when you hear a sinister sound. Behind you, something is climbing the stairs. We do not have the skill of alchemy, so tough luck to us. Rising to the top of the stairs comes a lumbering hulk with hungry scarlet eyes. Uh-oh, we're on low health because of that event that said drop to 15 health no matter what. The beast is covered in a vile fur that glistens in eerie light. Its long, sinewy arms are outstretched, and in both of its huge hands there are chunks of dagger-like flint. Its distended belly skims the floor as it stalks closer, and a brown, gooey saliva runs freely from its fanged jaw, with the rockfall preventing a hasty escape. You draw your weapon and steel yourself for combat. So we do outskill it, but we don't start with that much. We're going to go full-on Ultra Super Giga attack, even if it costs us more health. We roll a critical success, and therefore we insta-kill him. Oof. For a few moments, you stare at the lifeless body of the tunnel stalker. You sheath your weapon and continue the chore of clearing away the rockfall. Soon you've removed enough debris to enable you to squeeze through the gap, and to clear the section of the stairwell beyond. Once here, you block the opening behind you and race up the steps. Quickly, you climb the stairs, spurred on by the wintry chill that grows steadily colder as you ascend. You count 150 steps before you arrive at a chamber, which is heaped with rubble. The only door is blocked by debris and a huge slab of marble, making an immediate exit impossible. But it is not the door that commands your attention. It is the narrow circular shaft set into the middle of the ceiling, which is the source of the cold, wintry draft. Expectantly, you step closer and investigate the shaft. For the most part, it is dark, but you can see glimmers of grey daylight high above, and you can hear the whistling of the wind. You also hear another sound, one that is quite unexpected. It is a buzzing insect noise. You focus upon the darkness, and suddenly you see that the noises come from nests of winged insects that are fixed to the inside of the shaft. We do not have super pathsmanship, so the gentle buzzing becomes an angry drone from above. From above, and the lowest nest comes a swarm of wasp-like insects, each as large as a clenched fist. Alerted by your body warmth, they hurtle down the shaft and gather in a menacing cloud around the opening. For a few moments, they hover, virtually motionless, then they begin to circle the ceiling, led by an insect whose vivid scarlet markings stand out in stark contrast to the black and yellow striped torsos of the other. As the encircling swarm gathers speed, the lower sections of their bodies glows, illuminating needle-like stingers in their tails. You draw your weapon and get ready to defend yourself lest they should attack, but you're caught off guard when suddenly the leading insects fire their stingers at you. Diving aside to avoid being hit by the volley of venom-tipped needles, you scramble to your feet, and the remainder of the swarm breaks away and dives down to attack your unprotected back. They are immune to psychic. Boo! 4 damage to us, 6 to them, 16 to them, 3 to us. We safely win, but we did lose another quarter of our health. Your final blows kills the Scarlet Wasp leader, and immediately the surviving swarm members break off their attack. They stream towards the opening at the center of the ceiling and disappear towards the sky at the top of the shaft, closely followed by the remainder of their colony. When you feel sure that the nests are empty, you reach up and make a grip on the rough bricks that line the shaft. It offers you good purchase for your fingers and toes, enabling you to climb past the nests and reach the top of the shaft in a matter of minutes. From the top of the shaft, you look out across the sprawling ruins of Antar. You have emerged upon the flat roofs of a mouldering stone crypt, situated a few hundred yards from the tower by which you first entered this subterranean temple. The chill winds howl in the surrounding trees, and overhead the darkening winter sky warns that night is fast approaching. The ruins are completely deserted. The undisturbed blanket of snow that lies thick upon the ground hides all tracks, sorely reminds you that the 15 precious days you escape that elapsed during your internment will have allowed... Hiding all tracks sorely reminds you that 15 precious days have elapsed since your internment. You think of Captain Prague and wonder if he is still alive, and an empty feeling gnaws at your stomach when you pause to consider the fate that may have befallen him and his Lentian countrymen now that Magnaan is in possession of the Doomstone. You are fearful, though not entirely without hope. Magnaan believes you dead. It is a belief that you could use to your advantage. After all, by his own admission, did he not say that you were his only threat to victory? Carefully, you descend from the roof of the crypt and make your way through the forest, to where, 2 weeks earlier, Magnaan's 2 Kodak guards were encamped. In this clearing, there are no visible remains of their campsite, but diligently you sift through the ankle-deep snow looking for clues as to where they may have gone. We don't have ultra pathmanship. We don't have ultra animal husbandry, so we can't ask for the animals' help. With mixed feelings, you begin your trek through the forest. You are still hopeful of defeating Magnaan, but you are less enthusiastic about the prospect of having to slog 250 miles in order to reach Dark, the city where you are most likely to find your swarm enemy. Roll the random number table. We roll high. Stoically, you begin the difficult trek westward through the dense timberland, following the tracks left behind by Magnaan's troops. At dusk, you reach the forest's edge and stare out across an open expanse of bare, snow-covered plain. There is no cover to be had here, but at least the approaching darkness will keep you hidden from hostile eyes. As you emerge from the trees, you chance to notice something half buried in the undergrowth. A closer look reveals it to be a large Dracarim backpack. You flip open the buckles and search it and discover it contains the following items. Bow, arrow, meals, healing potion... Combat Performance Potion, Wine, Bowstring. Why not the potion of extra performance, the bottle of wine, a spare bowstring, and a meal? I'm not convinced about carrying the empty bottle as opposed to a meal. Layers of heavy snow clouds blanket the moon, and dusk quickly fades to a darkness which is total. Yet, using your Magna Chi night vision, you experience no difficulties as you follow Magna Arn's tracks across the open plain. Shortly before midnight, you come to the banks of the river Shug, close to a small cluster of log huts that are grouped around a derelict ferry post. Your enemy's week-old tracks lead to the center of this deserted settlement. The tracks end at a wooden jetty, which juts precariously into the deep, fast-flowing waters of the river Shug. Carefully, you examine the ground around the landing area. Aided by your exceptional tracking skills, you make two important discoveries. You deduce that Magna Arn and his troops boarded a barge and headed downstream towards Dark. You also discover that the area was used as a mustering place for a second, far larger group of troops. Doomwolf droppings and a Giak tooth hint at the identity of these troops, but your suspicions are confirmed when you find a bronze belt buckle engraved with the symbol of a fortress and a full moon. It is the symbol of the old Dark Lord city fortress of Kagorst. It confirms your fears that Magna Arn has at last persuaded Kagorst to join his cause. You are tired after your long trek. Rather than attempt to go further, you decide to rest here in the cabins overnight. So we do so. You wake at first light and make search of all the cabins. They've either been despoiled by the Gieks or stripped bare, and you discover nothing of practical use. You do uncover enough scraps of food preserved by the cold to make a decent breakfast, restore 3 endurance points. After your breakfast, you gather together your equipment and set off along the riverbank, heading west. The surrounding landscape is a harsh black and white desolation, devoid of colour. The bleakness is deepened by the constant moaning wind and the occasional cawing of distant carrion crows. 5 miles downstream, you happen upon a hut at the edge of the river. You expected it to be empty like the others at the ferry, so it comes as a welcome surprise to find that it contains a rowboat and a pair of oars, both in good condition. Heartened by your discovery, you launch the boat into the water and begin your voyage towards Dark. Random number table, we roll high. The journey downstream is swift and easy. The icy river cuts a direct path across the frozen plain before it wends its way through an expanse of low, rolling hills, blackened and scarred by war. Ruined hovels smoulder on the horizon, and scores of snow-covered corpses, human and otherwise, lie where they died in a running battle that has swept like wildfire across the land. Shortly after midday, you see something in the distance that sets your nerves on edge. It is a group of figures huddled together on the riverbank. You magnify your vision and identify them to be Dracarim, possibly deserters from Magna Arn's army that are attempting to catch fish in the river. Let's try and pass them as quickly as possible. The current and your powerful oar strokes propel you swiftly towards them. You're 50 yards distant when the unexpected sight of your boat galvanizes them to action. They drop their fishing lines, take up their bows, ready to fire upon you the moment you are opposite their position. A growl from their pot-bellied leader passes for an order to fire, and suddenly you find yourself speeding through a cloud of deadly arrows. Shoot back. You ship the oars and take aim with your bow at the pot-bellied leader. For a moment, your eyes meet, and instantly his nerve shatters when he realizes that he is your target. He drops his bow and turns to run, though it does not save him. Your arrow finds its mark. He throws his hands to the sky and tumbles lifelessly into the river. Panic breaks out amongst his followers. Any attempt to fire at you is forgotten as they scramble desperately up the muddy bank and flee for the safety of the hills. Your voyage continues without interruption until later in the afternoon you catch sight of a town on the horizon. You check your map and discover it to be Konozod, a fortified Drakrim stronghold. As the river carries you closer, you magnify your vision and see that it is built upon the left bank of the Shug. A huge stone bridge spans the river, and beneath this you see the waterway is blocked by a barrier of chained logs. Let's get out of the boat and continue on foot, methinks. You steer the boat towards the riverbank, and as soon as the prow embeds itself in the mud, you disembark and make your way quickly towards two lines of ramshackle huts, standing near the water's edge. A narrow alley separates the hovels, and it is here that you observe the town's defences and try to assess how many Drakrim are stationed in the stronghold. The town itself comprises a sorry collection of battle-damaged buildings ringed by a perimeter wall of logs, which is shored up in many places. Several long and bitter battles have been fought here over the past year, and everywhere you look the vivid scars of war are plain to see. The town is strangely quiet and appears to be weakly protected. The Drakrim garrison is few in number, and those that you have seen so far appear to be either young, old, or walking wounded. Night is beginning to dawn. The Drakrim are lighting the torches which line the perimeter wall, and a change of guard is taking place. You are considering leaving the town by continuing your way towards the dark, when suddenly you see something that makes you change your mind. A ragged line of Lencian prisoners is crossing the stone bridge, escorted by a dozen Drakrim, armed with crossbows and spears. The main gate swings open to admit them, and the Lencians file through with their heads bowed in defeat. You see that the central square of the town has been turned into a large prisoner of war compound. It is enclosed by a crude fence of wire and sharpened stakes, patrolled by sentries and Akataz war dogs. From what little you can see, you estimate 200 Lencians being held captive. The conditions are shocking. The men are being kept out of the open, without shelter or heat or light, and judging by the state of those already here, it looks as if the Drakrim are purposefully starving them. Your shock turns to anger as you vow to do something to help the prisoners. Before you can think through a plan of action, your Kai senses warn you of approaching footsteps. Two of the Drakrim escorts have slipped away from the line, and they are walking briskly towards the alleyway. One has a canvas sack slung over his shoulder, and as they draw closer, you are forced to take cover in a shadowy doorway to avoid being seen. Roll the random number table. Random number table gets minimum of the high increment. The two escorts enter the alleyway, and although you're less than 10 feet away from them, they don't see you. You watch as they open the sack and pick over and divide its contents. It is filled with the spoils of battle, items of value that they have taken from prisoners or stolen from the dead. They laugh greedily until they hear the gruff shouts of a sergeant standing at the main gates shouting their names. Quickly they hide their booty in a hole beneath an empty horse trough. Then they leave the alley and hurry back to town. Sure, we'll investigate what they've hidden. You uncover the sack and sift through its contents. Gleaming in the dim light is a mass of coins, silver plates, candlesticks, jewellery, and all manner of precious and semi-precious stones. Countless gold teeth, pulled no doubt from the mouths of fallen Lencian knights, and scores of trinkets and other mementos taken from less noble corpses. One item you sense that possesses no magical properties. You pull it out, and on closer inspection you discover it to be a polished jaden amulet fixed to a gold neck chain. If you keep it, mark it as a special item. It adds +1 to your score whenever you are asked to pick a number from the random number table, but only when trying to avoid missiles aimed at you. It's better than nothing. Having replaced the sack in the hole, you draw your cloak about you and approach the main gates. The guards are busy admitting the latest batch of prisoners, and, helped by your camouflage skills, they don't give you a second glance as you stride confidently into the town. Once inside, you head towards a dark, deserted alley sandwiched between the stables and an armory. From here you observe the compound with growing anger and pity for those trapped inside. Stirred by their plight, you vow to help the starving men. Patiently you watch and wait for the patrols to pass. Then you scurry towards the compound fence and make contact. Huddled together in the corner of the compound, away from the other prisoners, a small group of men-at-arms. There is a small group of men-at-arms. The front of their tattered blue coats bear the emblem of the crown set above a crest of Vidira, identifying them to be of the same regiment, the Imperial Vidira Guard, one of Valencia's finest. Using your skills to avoid detection, you make your way to the fence and try to attract their attention. One of their number, a captain, sees you and is suspicious. You signal him to come closer, and, reluctantly at first, he crawls towards the fence. You're not Dracarim or Lencian. Who are you? What do you want? He hisses through cracked lips, blue with hunger and cold. Is this another Dracarim trick designed to torment us? This is no trick, you whisper, trying hard to reassure him. I am an ally in the service of your king. I want to help you and your men escape. He holds you with steely grey eyes and shakes his head. It is too late for us. We are too weak to resist. Some have tried and all have died in the jaws of the dogs. Save yourself, stranger, and forget us. But if you stay here, you'll starve to death. Surely it is better to die fighting than waste away. The garrison here is small, barely 40 in number. I could cause a diversion and draw their dogs away. Your men may be weakened, but you outnumber the enemy 5 times over. For Ishia's sake, have you lost the will to live? He glances over his shoulder at his starving comrades, and then turns to face you once more, a faint glimmer of hope in his eyes. All of these men have been more than a week without food or shelter. Many have died, and most are near to death. I fear we are too weak to fight an enemy who has food in his belly and a sword in his hand. Perhaps if we had weapons. If you do as I say, you'll have enough weapons to pluck this town from under their very noses. The Lencian narrows his eyes, and for a moment, the trace of a smile softens his gaunt features. Very well, stranger, tell me your plan. I will prepare a diversion. When the guards and the dogs are drawn away from the perimeter fence, you must act quickly. You and your men must storm the gates. Once you are free, make your way to the armory with all haste. You'll find your weapons there. That's all very well, but how do we get into the armory? It is the most secure building of the town. Don't worry about that. I shall be inside, waiting to let you in. For a few moments, the captain considers the plan in silence, and then, with a nod, he agrees. Well be it. We will pass on the word. You watch as he returns to his men. You leave the fence and retrace your steps to the darkening alley. When the coast is clear, you enter the stables and set a fire in the straw loft. As you're leaving, you open each of the stalls so that the horses will be able to escape once the fire takes hold. On returning to the alleyway, you run to the rear of the armory building and locate a window through which you can force entry. Shuttered and barred, but aided by your innate skills, you're able to break it open. The noise of your forced entry alerts 2 Dracarim, who are on guard inside the building, and as you squeeze through the narrow window, they attack you. Use Psychic Extra Attack. Success, critical success, insta-kill on the second round of combat. As you step away from the dead guards, you hear shouts of alarm outside the building. The roof of the stable has erupted into a sheet of flame. The garrison is thrown into a state of near panic as it tries to fight the fire and contain the horses stampeding through the streets. You run the length of the armory and hurriedly lift the massive drawbar that holds the main doors closed. Outside, you see the perimeter guards are abandoning their posts in order to fight the fire raging through the stables. The Lencians are on their feet. They are grouped by the entrance to the compound, and, as the last of the guards lead, they rush forward to barge open the gates. Led by the captain, they come streaming across the flagstone square towards the armory, sweeping aside any Dracarim forces foolish enough to turn this vengeful tide. With a cheer, they pour into the armory, equip themselves with weapons from its many racks of spears and swords. "Let's take this town," shouts the captain, amid stirring battle cries of "Lencia" and "For the House of Sarnak." The starving Lencians set off to obey his command. You try to reach the captain, whose name you learn is Shira, but before you reach him, you are swept out into the street, carried along by the crowd of battle-hungry soldiers. The fight for control of Konazod is swift and bloody. Within the hour, the town is under Lencian control once more, its Dracarim garrison having been put mercilessly to the sword. However, not all of the enemy perish in battle. To Captain Shira's dismay, several manage to escape across the river and flee to the west on horseback. He is anxious that they may return with reinforcements to take the town. The food store is discovered, and whilst the starving Lencians satiate their hunger, you talk with Captain Shira about the events of the last few weeks, which have led to your meeting. You learn from him that after you were interred at the temple, Warlord Magnaan waged a minor offensive against the Lencian army. Having reunited the Doomstones, he has, as King Sarnak feared, forced the Nadziranim, sorcerers of Kagorst and Akagazad, to help him. Their combined skills have wrought great destruction. They attacked and drove through the Lencian lines like demons in an offensive which was swift and deadly. A week ago, Captain Shira and his regiment were cut off and captured in the fighting around Hokadat, after which they were marched here and imprisoned. He considers himself lucky to be alive, for the Dracarim rarely take prisoners. Then you ask of what news he has heard of the war since he came. There is much confusion. I heard talk that most of the mercenaries in Sarnak's pay have deserted us. Some even joined the enemy. The Dracarim taunted us, saying that our army must have been smashed. They said the remnants have been pushed into the Tentrius, but I dismissed this as lies. One thing is for sure, though. Magnaan intends to raise the siege of Dark. It has become his call to battle. On to Dark! The cry was on the lips of his troops during the Battle of Hokadat. I saw him during this battle. He was leading his army personally, wielding his accursed scepter, dealing death to all who chose to stand in his way. He possessed a great and terrible power, and I fear that we may now be unable to put an end to his evil ambitions. Do you know anything about Captain Prague? I'm sorry, I have heard nothing. There have been so many men lost or killed since Magnaan attack. I know of this officer, though I've never met. I heard tell that he is a good and brave man, but I have not seen him here. Captain Shira musters his men and posts lookouts around the town. Around the town wall as a precaution in case the Dracarim return during the night with reinforcements. He then oversees the care of the sick and wounded. You are impressed by his devotion to the men under his command, and once his duties are complete, you return with him to the armory to formulate a plan of action. It is decided that it is too dangerous to remain here, and you agree that you should leave at first light. Shira says there are sufficient boats to transport everyone downriver to Dark, but there is a risk that you could run afoul of Magnaan's troops. However, he is determined to rejoin his army. If the Lencians are still resisting Magnaan, then he reasons that the city of Dark is where the battle is most likely to be taking place. You're hungry, you eat the food that's in the storeroom, gain 3 health. He wakes you shortly before dawn, and wearily you rise from your makeshift bed. Mindful of the journey ahead, you take a brief search of the armory and discover these things that could be useful. Did we actually use an arrow? We did not use any arrows, so we're good. Although there is a new quiver, we might as well continue quiver hoarding. Oh no. Oh no. No, come on. Well, that's really, 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 really bad. It has teleported us back to, like, the opening third of the book. Well, we'll try and speed through it. Back to where we were. This is the same. We get found by the guards. We did the warehouse. The warehouse worked. We shot the guy. Okay, we do have psychic attack. We destroy the doggos. We roll really poorly this time. Our horse does not jump the trench completely. We lose 3 health. Steal the horse again. Go directly to the stables. Random number. We do successfully steal the horse. We make progress. We do have a rope. We rescue him from under the water. I do have a meal. We give it to him. We don't have magic. Good lord. This is so much. Tomb guards, kill them. I will replenish my arrow and meal. Now we could try this again. So what did I get wrong? Because, you know, I look at this and I see this as going down 15. This goes by 1. This goes by 2. This goes by 3. This goes by 4. So the answer should be 5. Change by 1, change by 2, change by 3, change by 4. 4 from 9 is 5. And yet, this time it says it's the correct answer. I'm sure last time it said that was wrong. Okay, the bad guy finds us. We go to shoot him. He says, don't shoot me or I will drop your bow or I'll kill your friend. He appears. He uses the magic stone on us. We are immune to the fungus. This one was, we said 35. And yet no. We do attempt to climb the chasm. We succeed. Same as last time. We search his body. He has money. And a bottle. And a ball of string. We do take the silver rod. We fight the monster. We're probably not so lucky as to insta-kill it this time. Yes, we are not. Okay. It gets us down to half of the health that we had. Then it's time to defeat the bees. Success. We find where they're going. We arrive at the town. We shoot the guy on the boat. We go ashore. We search the sack. We yoink the amulet. We instigate the rebellion. We kill the armory guards. Does he know anything about Prague? No, he doesn't. Nothing. Well, actually, the quiver is useful to us there. What? But I'm only at 11. Okay, then. I won't take a third quiver if you say I'm not allowed, even though it looks like I am. Okay. Shira suggests that you split up and search one half each. You nod in agreement. We're back to where we were. As you search the smouldering ruins, you discover little has survived the fire, which at its height must have transformed this town into a blazing inferno. The charred bones and skulls of those who died in the battle are strewn everywhere, and no attempt has been made to bury them. You're examining the remains of a Drakrim's sword when suddenly you hear Shira calling you. His voice full of urgency. You discard the sword and hurry back. Upon reaching the main street, you see him beckoning you from the doorway of a ruined inn. Over here, I found something. What is it? Come and look for yourself, he replies, and takes you to a flight of stone steps, which lead down into a cold, dark cellar. In the corner of the cellar, you see two booted, blood-stained feet, protruding from beneath a mass of collapsed flooring. As you move closer, you discover they belong to a Lencian soldier who is badly wounded and barely conscious. He helps you clear away the charred timbers that are pinning him to the ground, and using your skills of healing, you attend to his wounds. After a few minutes, he recovers consciousness long enough to tell you his name. You carry the man back to the river and place him carefully into your boat. The captain's men have managed to clear a passage wide enough for the flotilla to pass through single file. As you continue your journey downriver, you spend some time nursing the injured soldier back to consciousness. He tells you of the battle that destroyed his regiment, how the Magna Arn used the scepter to set the town ablaze, and how he has survived the last 6 days, sustained by nothing more than a few handfuls of snow. His account of the battle is chilling and leaves you with a gnawing fear that maybe it is already too late to prevent Warlord Magna Arn from regaining control of Dark. West of Odnenga, the river meanders very little as it crosses the snow-swept plains of southern Nirus. It is a deserted landscape, yet Captain Shira cautions his men to remain watchful. Doubly so whenever the boat passes an occasional corpse of fir or stunted pine. Late in the afternoon, as the light is beginning to fade, you come to a forested part of the river where the banks are steeply undercut. Trees are growing at the very edge of the overhanging banks, and their roots are clearly visible, hanging down like clusters of vines into the icy waters of the Shug. You're watching the left bank when suddenly your pathsmanship sensors alert you to the threat of an ambush. You warn the captain and he signals the boats to put ashore. Having sensed the threat, you volunteer to go forward and scout the woods to find out who or what is there. The captain agrees and calls for 3 of his men, all trained army scouts, to accompany you. He and the rest of the command will remain here with the boats and wait your return. Random number table. You brief the 3 Lencians to spread out into an extended line and watch carefully for your signals before you scale the riverbank and make your approach to the trees. They all seem like competent scouts, but you have your reservations. Had it not been for Shira's insistence, you would have preferred to reconnoiter yourself. Silently, you creep through the snow, using the sparse undergrowth to your advantage where possible. You are less than 100 yards into the copse when you spy a small camp hidden among the trees. It comprises 4 white canvas tents attended by a dozen lean and hungry-looking human soldiers, armed with longbows. A furled battle flag stands propped against one of the tents, and you signal to your nearest scout to join you, hoping he will be able to identify the checkered black and white design. "They're Leaguelanders of Ilion," whispers the scout. "I know the flag well. Mercenaries, good loyal men to the king. We fought alongside them at Hokkidat." You are anxious about going forward and making contact with the mercenaries. However, if they're as good as the scout claims, there is a real danger that they will fire first and ask questions later. You tell your companion your fears and he smiles. "I know how to contact them," he says. He places 2 fingers to his lips and gives a long, warbling whistle. The sound makes the mercenaries turn and stare in your direction, and you hear one of them whistle twice in reply. The scout then calls out a request that you be allowed to enter the camp. There is a long pause, and then the voice replies, "Show yourselves." Relief that you are human and not Dracarim is displayed clearly on the faces of the Leaguelanders when the 4 of you stand up and walk towards the camp. You receive a warm welcome from these soldiers of fortune, and 2 of them offer to escort you to their leader, Baron Maquin. You and your scouts are taken to a lookout post on the banks of the river, where you meet with Baron Maquin, the leader of the mercenary band. He is a tall man, clad from neck to toe in furs that are caked with frost. A battered silver helm hides much of his battle-scarred face, but you can see enough of his distinctly Elonian features that you know at once he is a brave man, a man of honor. He regards you with a skeptical eye, having never before met a summer-lending lord, let alone one such as yourself. He questions you at length, and upon hearing your story, you sense he is greatly impressed. In return, he tells you briefly how he and his men have come to find themselves here. The regiment is still loyal to King Sarnak. Unlike the cowardly Stornlenders, they broke their pact and now fight against Lencia alongside her enemies. The Baron spits on the ground in a show of contempt for the treacherous regiments. My command has been left here to fight as a rearguard. Our orders are to ambush any Dracarim that may try to reach Dark by river. We believe there to be many enemy reinforcements at Konazod, and our task is to prevent them from joining with Maganan. You remind the Baron that you've just come from Konazod and that it's virtually empty. There are no reinforcements there. Respectfully, you suggest that he and his men join you in an attempt to reach Dark, where he could join once more with the Lencian army. He considers your suggestion, and after discussing it with his men, he agrees. But first, summon your men to my humble camp. It will soon be dark, and it is too dangerous to travel the river at night. You could be ambushed. You send one of the scouts to summon Captain Shira and his men. They arrive. They are treated hospitably by the mercenaries, who, despite their own hunger, unselfishly share their meager rations. You stay overnight and break camp at dawn. The Baron's regiment has suffered heavily in battle, and now totals little more than 40 men, and you have no difficulty in finding room for them in the boats. Captain Shira is especially pleased to have these warriors aboard. Despite their losses, they are a cheerful group, and they help lift the morale of his own men. The journey downstream passes swiftly and without incident until, shortly before noon, the sky grows steadily darker. An orange glow illuminates the distant horizon, and you can see many pinpoints of fire spread all across the land. An eerie silence descends on the flotilla as it draws nearer to the City of Dark. Shortly after, you see lines of troops marching towards the glowing skyline. Then you witness isolated actions taking place in the surrounding fields as groups of Lencian knights, cut off during the retreat, fight desperate hand-to-hand battles with Dracarim cavalry. Some of the horse scouts have reached the riverbank, and as you pass them they open fire with their bows. The swift current soon carries you and the flotilla away, and there are very few casualties. It is an hour past noon when you first see the forbidding City of Dark. A great battle is raging around its mighty walls and bastions, and the noise and stench of this fierce conflict comes gusting towards you on a chill winter wind. The river current is getting stronger as it approaches the sea, and so you signal to the other boats to row for the bank. You put ashore on the right bank, and both Captain Shearer and Baron McQuinn have their men make up defensive positions. There is a road close by running parallel to the river, and beyond it lies a snowy expanse of open plain, on which many regiments of Dracarim and some Giaks are marching towards the city. You observe the distant battle when a large black carrion crow lands on a nearby log. We do not have birdie mastery. It takes flight and runs away, cawing long and loud. Baron McQuinn and Captain Shearer are anxious to move their men away from the riverbank. Their military training has taught them to avoid placing their troops with their backs to an impassable body of water. If the enemy is to attack, there is no escape. You understand their concern, and using your ability to magnify your vision, you scan the landscape in search of a more advantageous position. A mile away to the northwest is a tiny hamlet. It appears deserted, and you suggest that the officers move their men there. Briefly, they discuss your suggestion and agree that it is a safer position. The order to move is passed along the ranks, and the men prepare to leave the boats and go forward. Hello, Baron. Thank you and welcome. You take the lead, together with the Baron and the Captain. But you've barely covered a quarter of the distance to the hamlet when your tracking sensors warn you that a threat is approaching from the north. Hurry towards the hamlet. The order goes out to advance quickly towards the distant hamlet. But you have covered barely a quarter mile when you see enemy horsemen fast approaching from the north. Mindful of the danger of being caught out here in the open, Baron McQuinn orders his mercenaries to form into a square in readiness to repel the cavalry attack. Captain Shearer issues the same order, and together they create a square bristling with spears. The cavalry thunder towards you, undaunted by the sight of this porcupine-like defense. The first wave of cavalry slams against the square and is repulsed with heavy losses. Then a second line hits home, and it too fails to break through. The wounded are dragged to the center of the square, and its ranks close in readiness to face the next charge. Twice the Dracarim have been repulsed, but they are a determined enemy, and they are getting ready for another attack. This time the charge is led by an armored Zaganozod on war horses that are sheathed with plates of bronze. Their armor and the sheer weight of their attack smashes a corner from the square, and in a terrible moment of carnage and chaos, several enemy horsemen break into the middle and trample the helpless wounded. You rush to help them, but in the heat of battle are knocked down by a riderless horse. Before you can get to your feet, you're attacked by two enemy lancers. Hail, Baron, yes. Who are maniacally determined to pin you to the ground with their lancers. Just fight with the two lancers. We've recovered most of our health finally. We will use our bonus psychic powers, even if they hurt us, to help increase the rate that we kill the enemy. 2-hit kill, not too bad. In fact, we did almost as much damage, well, half as much damage to ourselves as the enemy did. We win the combat. Inspired by your victory, the Lencians and their League land allies repel the remaining Zaganozod and close their ranks until the square is intact once more. The enemy are exhausted, and wearily they retreat across the plain with the stinging cheers of their foes echoing in their ears. Then an ominous noise comes rolling across the plain from the City of Dark. a thunderous boom that shakes the very ground on which you stand. You look towards the city and see that the battle is growing ever fiercer. But now there is a new and sinister aspect. Flickerings of magical fire can be seen dancing along the battlements, engulfing friend and foe alike. You sense that this is the work of Magnaan. He and his Nadziranim allies are responsible for this. Through the smoke of battle, you see a Lencian flag flying proudly amidst the carnage that is taking place on the coastal plain to the south of the city. Here, King Sarnak's crusaders have turned an enemy flank and are storming its weakened centre. Baron McQuinn and Shearer see the flag and, encouraged by the cheers of their own men, decide to march at once to support the crusaders' brave attack. You wish them both good fortune, and you know the time has come to part company with them. Their destiny awaits them on the field of battle. Yours will be found inside the City of Dark itself. If you are to fulfill your quest, you must confront Warlord Magnaan. You bid them farewell and watch as they lead their men in a marching column across the plain towards the distant field of battle. When they are a mile away, you set off alone towards the hamlet, which lies en route to the Gates of Dark. You reach the hamlet and hurry along its solitary road. Flanking you are 2 rows of low cottages, their thick thatched roofs still intact despite the fiery carnage that swept so near. Off to the right, you see a barn-like building standing with its door slightly ajar. A brazier of coals, an anvil, and a scattering of iron strips prove it was once a busy smithy. But now, like the surrounding buildings, it seems deserted. As you are passing the door, you hear a man's voice. He has a strong Lencian accent and is cursing you, thinking you to be a turned Stormland mercenary. As you turn to face the smithy door, Crusader comes rushing out into the road, brandishing a heavy steel mace. You yell at him that you are loyal to King Sarnak, but he ignores your plea and swings his weapon at your head. Okay, we're attempting to disable him. We won't use our extra psychic powers. We take modest damage. The misguided knight falls unconscious at your feet. Before he recovers, you take to your heels and continue across the plains which lead inexorably towards the Gates of Dark. As you approach the city, the din of battle fills your ears. The shouts of angry men, the neighs of galloping steeds, the clang of riven steel, and the terrible screams of the slain buffet you remorselessly. Then, all of a sudden, you are plunged into the battle, and to survive, you are forced to cleave your way through the seemingly endless wall of enemy troops. It is as if they are gladly willing to sacrifice themselves in order to prevent you from reaching the apex of the slope. Undeterred, you forge a bloody path through this Dracarim horde, wielding your weapon with deadly precision, every blow claiming an enemy soul. It is not until you stand upon the very threshold of the gates that you encounter more formidable defenders. The breached gates are being held by a bloody trio of blood-splattered Tukadak. They are in a state of battle frenzy, which you sense has been magically induced. Wild-eyed with savage bloodlust, they scream maniacally as they rush at you with their bloodied blades. The breached gates are held... Yeah, no, we already said that. For Summerland, you cry as you steel yourself to meet their attack. So we outskill them, we don't out-health them, we will convert our health to quicker damage. We insta-kill them via having so much more combat skill because of using psychic attack. Even if it caused us slight damage, it's less damage than we'd take by having a multi-turn combat the normal way, usually. You clamber over the bodies that are heaped chest-high against the shattered city gates. You begin to fight your way steadily towards the center of this terrible stronghold. Beyond the entrance, you see a wild battle is raging through the streets. A regiment of Lencian crusaders are fighting to wrestle a position of the keep from a determined horde of Magnaan's Dracarim. The tide turns against the Lencians as they are driven back towards the gates. You're forced to climb a stair which leads to the battlements in order to avoid being lost in the crush. Halfway up the steps, cheers, Salah, you are attacked by a Drakkar armed with a sword and a shield. You duck his clumsy swipe and lash out at his chest. He catches your blow on his shield, but the force of your attack hurls him down on the steps where he remains, cradling his broken arm, tears streaming down his soot-blackened face. You stride up the steps towards the battlements, where a group of Lencians are locked in combat with 2 Death Knights. The Crusaders slay their enemies, but they in turn are slain when a bolt of crackling crimson energy rips through their shiny steel armor, fired from the tip of a wizard's staff. Their lifeless bodies come tumbling down the steps, knocking you flat on your back and pinning you down beneath the weight of their armor. You struggle to get free, but are being observed by the one who slew the knights, an evil Nadzinarim wizard. He levels his staff at your head, and a swirling trail of sparks ignites at its tip. With imminent death staring you at your face, you steel yourself. Suddenly, the wizard cries out in pained surprise and throws his clawed-tip hand into the air. The sparkling bolt, which was destined to seal your doom, arcs from his staff and blows a man-sized hole in the wall of the fortress. As the resultant smoke and dust clears, you see Captain Prague standing over the body of the slain wizard, with a bloodied sword held in his hand. With a cry of victory, he leaps over the crumpled corpse and comes rushing down the steps to free you from the tangle of bodies. "Well met! I feared you were dead and buried in the Temple of Antar." "I too thought you dead, Prague," you reply. "Yet it seems fate decreed otherwise." "Oh, I was lucky," he said. "I escaped from Magna Arn. But come, there is no time for tales now. We must away from here. Follow me. I know where the warlord is hiding." You follow Prague to the top of the steps, and as you race along the body-strewn battlements, you see the fighting which is raging both inside and outside the city. The battlements end at a tower where a flight of spiral stairs ascend to a circular landing. Here you wait in the shadows until a troop of Dracarim pass by. While you're waiting for them to disappear, you look out of the tower through an arrow slit and see the waters of the Gulf of Lencia and the conflict that is raging across the coastal plain. "The King's Crusaders breached the city gates 3 days ago," whispers Prague. "They were close to taking the city when Magna Arn and his armies arrived. His newfound power shattered the Crusaders even though they were broken by it, not all were ejected from the city. Those you saw fighting at the keep are trying to hold on until our armies arrive from Cassland. The fleet is expected any moment. Magna Arn must be slain. He and the scepter have become one entity. He is now a puppet of a far greater evil." A shudder runs down your spine as for the first time since you entered Dark you feel the presence of the Doomstone. Fear returns to haunt you, the fear that this evil gem will sap your strength as it did in your first encounter. If it is still so, then Magna Arn may prove impossible to defeat. Prague senses your anxiety and offers words of advice. The taking of Dark has weakened the warlord. He paid a terrible price. He has been forced to retire from battle in order to recover his strength and is presently at his weakest. Now, sire, is the time to strike." Beyond the landing lies a corridor, which leads to a junction where another passageway crosses from left to right. You look to the right and see that the way is blocked by a heavy steel door. Prague utters a curse under his breath, and then he explains in anger. This way led directly to the palace tower. He was hiding there in its uppermost chamber. He glances along the opposite passage. "Perhaps we could get there by another route." "Sure, we'll look for another way." You hurry along the wind-swept passageway until you come to a corner. Prague turns the corner before you can warn him otherwise, and he finds himself staring at the brutish features of a Dracarim Death Knight. The warrior's curses echo along the corridor as he draws his sword and comes striding towards your careless companion. "We have a bow and we will try to shoot him. One sec." You draw an arrow and peep around the corner and fire at the advancing Death Knight. Your shaft hits him in the middle of the chest and knocks him flat on his back. He is fatally wounded, but, incredibly, he finds the strength to reach for a horn strung around his neck. In his dying moments, he tries to summon help. "Shoot him again." Your second arrow kills him instantly. You shoulder your bow and run down the corridor, with Prague close at your heels. As soon as you reach a junction where you are forced to choose a direction, left or right, you call upon your Kai skills and immediately sense a strong presence of evil lurking at the end of the right-hand passage. You focus on the source of evil and determine that it is indeed the Doomstone. You tell Prague and advance together along the passage until you reach a closed door. If you possess Super Hunt Mastery or Super Pathmanship, go here. Your Kai senses detect that your approach to this door has set off a trap. You shout a warning to Prague and he reacts with commendable swiftness. The two of you hit the floor and moments later, several razor-sharp sword blades lunge from slits in the wall to rake the air just a few feet above your heads. Then they retract and lock back into the walls with a deadly slickness. When you are sure the trap no longer poses a threat to your lives, you get to your feet and move forward to take a closer look at the door. You discover to your surprise that the door is unlocked. You push it and it swings open to reveal an empty chamber. You detect a strong presence of evil lurking somewhere nearby, and you warn Prague of what you sense. The two of you leave the chamber by a passage that leads to a flight of black stone steps. You ascend the steps to a domed chamber where a sheathed and dull black stone, which is sheathed with dull black stone. Heavy velvet hangings of ebony hue cover most of the walls, and all of the furnishings are upholstered with the same morbid cloth. The sensation of evil is stronger here, so strong that you feel as if you are slowly suffocating. "It is here," you whisper, hand reaching to your weapon. "The Doomstone. I can feel its presence." Suddenly there is a movement away to your left, and a blast of white-hot energy comes roaring towards your face. You dive aside in time to avoid it, but the bolt rebounds from the steel-hard wall and glances off the back of Prague's head, knocking him unconscious. You kneel beside Prague and check that he is still breathing. He is fortunate that the bolt struck him but a glancing blow. Had it hit him squarely, he would have been killed outright. Then you hear a movement over the far side of the chamber. When you look up, you see Warlord Magnaan emerging from behind one of the many hanging drapes. The aura of evil that surrounds his body like a shimmering grey cocoon. His features no longer appear as they did when you first encountered him in the subterranean labyrinths of the Temple of Antar. Now his body is twisted and mummy-like, feverish eyes which burn in black sockets within a bald skull of a face. You sense that he is wholly possessed by the object he holds clenched in his shrunken hand, the Nereus scepter. The dread scepter hums with the power of the Doomstone that is set upon its platinum shaft. Magnaan utters an evil laugh and points it at you, but curiously you feel no weakness or leeching of strength, as occurred in Antar. The warlock's sick eyes widen with surprise, and you sense that he is fearful. He threatens you with death, but his voice is wavering. He is unsure of his power. You sense another presence, a magical presence. A wispy shape emerges from behind another court curtain, summoned forth from Magnaan. At once you recognize it to be the formless life force of a Nadziranim sorcerer. You hear him issue a psychic command, ordering the creature to slay you. Immediately it responds. Swiftly it moves across the chamber, changing shape as it draws closer. It is no more than 10 feet distant when it solidifies in a form truly horrible to behold. The Nadziranim has taken on the visage of a great snuffling beast that creeps towards you on 6 long-clawed feet. A vile, bulbous head is perched uneasily on its immense shoulders, and its baleful, milky-coloured eyes roll like balls of mist within its scabrous head. The reeking fur of its body seems to bristle as slowly and with ponderous steps it draws closer and closer. If you have the summer sword, turn here. The creature opens its great jaws, and from the depths of its throat it coughs forth a guttering ball of flame. Immediately, your senses alert you to the fact that this is no ordinary fireball, but one that is psychic in nature. It comes roaring towards you like a mini sun, trailing fiery orange sparks. You tennis it with the summer sword. and as your divine blade connects, the fiery ball explodes into a million motes of light that rapidly dissolve. The sudden jolt of contact knocks you backwards. Before you recover your footing, the creature seizes its advantage and comes leaping through the air towards your chest. Desperately, you roll across the black stone floor to avoid its initial attack. Your swift reactions save you from its razor-sharp claws. But it too possesses fast reflexes. It leaps once more, and you barely have enough time to unsheath your weapon before it lands upon you, slamming you to the ground. We outcombat it by a fair bit, especially if we use Psychic. It does only marginal damage to us. The moment you strike your killing blow, the creature explodes with a flash of brilliant white light. As the glare fades, you see that nothing whatsoever remains of either its body or spirit. Magnaan witnessed the death of his servant with a look of pure terror. He screams, and in a moment of panic, he touches the head of the nearest scepter to the floor. There is a tremendous boom, and the floor shudders violently as it is torn wide apart by a massive quake. Hurriedly, he makes his escape through a curtained archway. Determined to not allow him to escape, you get ready to leap across the fissure. It is no less than 20 feet wide at its narrowest point. Pick a number from the random number table. If you have Hunt Mastery and have reached this rank, add 2. We roll well enough. You clear the gap with a single bound and even manage to stay on your feet when you land on the far side. Hungry for victory and vengeance, you tear aside the curtain through which he ran and discovered a short flight of steps which emerge at a turret at the very top of the palace tower, the highest point in the City of Dark. Here you find him cowering, with his crooked back pressed hard against the frost-covered wall. You sense that he has very nearly succumbed to the evil power of the Doomstone. He is treading a fine line between life and undeath. Even though he is but a whisker away from eternal damnation, he musters enough spite to challenge you to a fight to the death. Very well, let the battle commence. He has equal combat skill, so we're going to have to add in our Psychic in order to do more damage to him than he does to us per round. But we started with slightly more health, so we're fairly safe. Yes, he did about a third of our remaining health. We win combat. The moment you strike your killing blow, the nearest scepter explodes with a brilliant flash, and you are knocked down by the sudden release of energy. For several minutes, you lie unconscious on the floor of the wind-swept tunnel, until you are found and revived by your guide and companion, Captain Prague. Nothing remains of either Warlord Magnaan or the nearest scepter. Both are utterly destroyed. Prague helps you to your feet, and as you look across the battle-torn landscape, you witness a wondrous event. The Gulf of Lencia is dotted with scores of square-rigged men-of-war. Ships of the Cassland fleet. At last, Lencia's allies have arrived. Thanks to your bravery and determination, the power which so devastated this land is no more. The destruction of the nearest scepter heralds a turn in the tides of war to the west. The Nadziranim and their armies flee the field of battle and are pursued by the allies all the way back to their strongholds in the north. The remnants of Magnaan's army are routed and swept out of Nearus. And after many centuries, this country finally returns to its rightful heirs. In recognition of your victory over Warlord Magnaan, King Sarnak of Lencia and Archduke Chalamus of Cassland hold a royal banquet in Vadira in honor of you. You are heaped with praise, and you receive the thanks and warm congratulations of a grateful populace. Well done, Lone Wolf. Once again you have achieved a victory over the forces of darkness and prove yourself to be worthy of the title of Kai Grand Master. Let the fight of evil forever goes on. On your return to your homeland, you will be faced with a new and deadly challenge, one that will test your remarkable skills and unquestionable bravery. The nature of your challenge can be found in the next Grand Master book adventure, which is entitled The Legacy of Vashna. Woo, that was a long one. Considering that we didn't die, I think that is the longest non-death book so far. 3.5 hours. still, it seemed pretty nice in that even the like triple RNG tables that you had choices. Well, the decisions that you had 3 choices for based on the RNG table never seemed to just outright insta-kill you. At most, they seem to cost you health, which is a much more reasonable way of doing it than having you have rolled poorly, restart the whole book. So that seems like a good change that this book has done. Thank you for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed it, and will join us next week for The Legacy of Vashna.